Chapter 1385. After the meal, Fengling carefully went to cut some fruits. They were all soft fruits such as bananas and grapes. She cut them into small pieces and placed them in Li Nanhing's hand. Right now, Li Nanhing was covered with a blanket and continued to sit on the sofa obediently. He held a small fruit plate in his hand, and there was a small fork of fruit on it. When he was stuffed over, Li Nanhing chuckled. When he heard Fengling turn around to busy herself again, he said, "Are you sure you want to take care of me like this every day? It's fine for 1 or 2 days, but I don't know how long it will take. I think it's better to hire an auntie to help you. The kind that works at a fixed time every day." Fengling did not answer. She had already gone to the bathroom to do something else. After she was done, she came out and seemed to have found the time to answer him. "There's no need for the time being. With the amount of medicine you take every day and the rehabilitation exercises you need to do every day, I think you'll recover in less than half a year. Your physical strength has already recovered a lot. The rest is just the functions of your body. It's not like you can't get out of bed. There's no need to hire an auntie." Li Nanhing looked for her voice and turned his head slightly. "What are you doing? Eat some fruit first. Although I've already hired someone to clean up the house, I'm afraid it's still not clean. After all, everyone knows that you're a clean freak," Fengling said calmly. Fengling's tone was very normal as she said, "I'll disinfect the bathroom again. I'll help you take a bath later." "How can I be so clean freak?" Li Nanhing sighed. It was because he really couldn't see, but he knew that Fengling hadn't been idle since she came back. He raised his hand and waved at her. "Come here." Fengling didn't understand and walked over. "What's wrong? Come closer." Just as she was about to ask him what he was going to do, the man suddenly raised his hand and accurately held her wrist. As she was caught off guard, he gently pulled her, causing her to stumble forward. Subconsciously afraid that she would hurt him, she quickly raised her hand to support herself on the back of the sofa behind him. In the end, half of her body weight was almost pressed against him. She raised her hands weakly to support herself on the back of the sofa behind him. She lowered her head and her lips almost hit his straight nose. The man took the opportunity to casually lean against the back of the sofa, slightly raising his head with an expression of enjoyment as though he had been hit by the sofa. He slightly raised his brows. "What are you doing?" Fengling lowered her head and glared at him at such a close distance. "I should be the one asking you what you want to do." The man chuckled. "I asked you to sit down and rest for a while. Why are you pressing down on me?" Fengling looked at him speechlessly, but with a layer of gauze in front of her eyes, she couldn't see his eyes, so she could only step back without saying anything. However, the back of her waist suddenly tightened. The man had probably gathered all the strength in his body on that arm and firmly tied her up. This time, even though Fengling sensed it and was prepared, she was still pressed against him by his sudden strength. This time, Fengling lowered her head and her nose almost hit his collarbone. She quickly tilted her head slightly and her lips brushed against the man's carotid artery. She could feel the obvious frequency of his artery under his warm skin. Li Nanhing lowered his head and kissed her forehead. Fengling was about to break free from him, but because of his sudden kiss, she paused. She did not move but only whispered, "I'm pressing against your wound. Doesn't it hurt?" "It's already healed. It'll be fine after some rest. You're not heavy. It doesn't hurt at all." The man hugged her tighter. "I said I wanted you to take care of me because I just want to be alone with you. There's no need to be so busy. I'm just blind, not paralyzed in bed. There's no need to be so meticulous, en?" Fengling was silent for a while before she softly responded with an "en." She did not dare to speak again, because as soon as she spoke, her lips would brush against his carotid artery. The real frequency of his beating made her heart tighten. She could feel his vitality at all times and feel that he was alive in front of her. "Sit down and rest for a while. I can take a shower myself." "We'll talk about this later," Fengling said softly. Fengling said in a low voice. She couldn't stand being pressed against his neck and quickly pushed back. At the same time, she gently pushed him away. Li Nanhing did not force her, but when she got up, his hand seemed to accidentally brush against her ear and felt that it was slightly hotter than usual. He turned his head in her direction. Fengling coughed and ran into the bathroom to disinfect. This time, she simply closed the bathroom door to prevent him from hearing the sound of her washing the bathtub. In fact, it was not suitable for Li Nanhing to take a bath right now. Fengling weighed the pros and cons for a long time. Even though the bathtub had been disinfected, in the end, she only let him take a simple shower. The bathroom was too hot, and it was not good for his body or the recovery of his wounds. Although the wounds had healed, there was only a thin layer of new skin on the surface. He could not soak in a hot bath for too long. Li Nanhing's current physical strength was much better than when he had just returned to Los Angeles, but he had also fixed his sleeping time and biological clock in the hospital every day. Thus, before 9:30 p.m., he was brought into the bedroom by Feng Ling. Feng Ling tidied the soft blanket on the bed, helped him sit down, and lay down. Even though Li Nanhing wanted her to rest early, Feng Ling said that she would wait a while because she had not showered and changed her clothes. When she went out to drink a glass of water and returned, the man had already taken the medicine after showering. Due to the medicine, he had already fallen asleep. Feng Ling gently closed the door, not wanting to wake him up. The next day, Li Nanhing was woken up by a series of dang-dang sounds. It was not a shock, but at least he knew where he was even when he was asleep. He knew that he was in Feng Ling's apartment. In the end, there was such a sound early in the morning. The man opened his eyes. It was still dark, but after applying herbal ice to his eyes last night, his eyes were no longer covered with gauze. He tried to find his way in the darkness, lifted the blanket, and got off the bed. He fumbled in the bedroom for a long time and turned around. In the end, his leg still hit a single sofa very close to the bedroom door. The sound of the collision was not loud, and his body did not fall down. However, Feng Ling heard the noise outside. She threw down the half-slaughtered chicken and quickly walked back. She pushed the door open and saw Li Nanhing groping in the air. "I want to chat with more like-minded people about, young Master Mo, have you kissed enough, talk about life, and find a confidant W. For M." Chapter 1386. Seeing that one of his legs was blocked by the sofa, Feng Ling asked in surprise, "When did you wake up?" "I just woke up." Li Nanhing put down his arm and turned to her. "What was the sound outside just now?" "Ah, I was killing the chicken." "Did it disturb you?" "You know how to kill?" "I looked it up on the internet and saw a tutorial on killing chickens. I tried to kill one. It's not bad. It's quite successful." Feng Ling held the door handle with one clean hand, and her other hand was stained with blood. She was wearing the Qian family's home clothes, and her long hair was tied behind her head. She looked gentle and indifferent, but when she spoke of killing a chicken, her expression did not change. "Li Nanhing, there's a tutorial for this thing." "Yes." Feng Ling then looked at his legs. "Move your legs 10 centimeters to the right, and then walk forward to the bedroom door. The bedroom door is about 6 or 7 meters away from the sofa in the living room. There are no obstacles in the middle. Can you come out by yourself?" "Yes." "All right, I'll continue to kill." With that, Feng Ling opened the bedroom door for him and turned to return to the kitchen. Li Nanhing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He moved his legs away from the sofa in the bedroom according to the route she said, and successfully left the bedroom. He then slowly moved forward and measured the distance according to his steps. After confirming the position, his legs did touch the edge of the sofa in the living room. He touched the back of the sofa and looked back for the sound of the kitchen. Imagining the scene of Feng Ling killing the chicken, he suddenly remembered what Kay had said on the phone about not acknowledging her. Li Nanhing's heart trembled. He turned and walked in the general direction of the kitchen. He raised his hand and touched the wall that he almost hit, then walked along the wall to the kitchen door and poked his head in. Feng Ling was squatting on the ground and immersed in fighting. Hearing the movement, she turned back and saw Li Nanhing with a pair of unfocused eyes looking at her. His inexplicable desire to survive made Feng Ling's eyes twitch. "Do you need help?" Li Nanhing asked. Feng Ling glanced at him. "What can you help with?" Under normal circumstances, Li Nanhing's heart was absolutely strong. Even when he was mocked by Feng Ling, he did not feel like he had been shot. Perhaps it was because he felt that he would not be able to survive in Israel that he avoided people. Otherwise, with his strong heart, as long as he did not face death, even if Feng Ling was angry at him because he could not see, he would not be hurt. The man revealed half of his head in front of the kitchen door and said thoughtfully, "Standing by the side to command you." "My knife is a chicken wing. Do I need you to command me?" Feng Ling continued to lower her head to fiddle with the chicken that had almost been cleaned. "It's not like we're in the base. Why do I need you to tell me how to use the gun?" Li Nanhing stood in front of the door and smiled. Feng Ling lowered her head to deal with it for a while and suddenly turned back to see that Li Nanhing had not left. There was no gauze around his eyes. Even if he couldn't see, it was really, "Can you go back to the sofa and sit down? I'll apply medicine to your eyes later. Don't stand here." "What? If you stand here, I can't cut down." Li Nanhing raised his eyebrows as if he understood. He nodded, turned around, and walked forward, touching the air. After cleaning up the mess in the kitchen, Feng Ling cleaned up her somewhat disheveled clothes and went to take a shower. After taking a shower, she went to bring the medicine that the doctor had instructed her to apply to his eyes every day. Feng Ling's movements were very gentle. Every time she applied the medicine for him, it was as though she was afraid of touching his eyes, but she had no choice but to touch them with her fingers. Li Nanhing closed his eyes and sat on the sofa. He said slowly, "If my eyes can't recover for the rest of my life, you can't apply medicine for me like this for the rest of my life." "Why not?" Feng Ling's tone was calm. She was not affected by his words at all. She patiently played with the gauze in her hand. "The doctor said that it's just because of the blood clot in your brain that oppresses your optic nerves and some chemical smoke. It'll recover. You might be able to see suddenly, or you might not be able to see for 10 or 20 years. You just follow the doctor's instructions every day. You'll always remember me. From your tone, it seems that you really love me, a disabled person who can't see. You don't dislike me at all." The man smiled. Feng Ling helped him apply the gauze and stepped back to check if it was neatly applied. She then stepped forward to adjust the gauze on his left eye. As she did so, she said, "Of course not. You've seen me when I was in my teens and when I was in my 20s. You've seen me when I was at my most beautiful and will always remember me. And, so? If you really can't see in the future, it's not bad. At least you won't be able to see my old appearance." Feng Ling moved her hand away from the gauze on his eye. She was satisfied that her ability to apply medicine and gauze on him was getting better and better. She was about to walk away when her wrist suddenly felt heavy. The man suddenly held her hand. "I want to see it." He held her hand. His voice was calm, but there was a certain firmness in it. What did he want to see? To see her slowly grow old in the next few decades? This inexplicable and obscure agreement that the two of them would slowly grow old together made her heart beat faster. Feng Ling lowered her eyes to look at the hand he was holding. She composed herself for a moment and said, "There's something you haven't answered me." "What?" "About Tming and the 1 billion yuan financing. How did you know that these were the two things I wanted to do the most? Including the clean funds left by Tming, which could be used to fill the Feng Corporation's treasury and use for emergency funds. Everything happened to help me. Did I really say something to you after I drank too much?" Li Nanhing curved his lips slightly and released his hand from her wrist. He calmly tugged the thin blanket on his leg up. "Don't you know what you're like after you drink too much?" "Of course not." Li Nanhing smiled. "At that time, you hugged my leg and called me hubby. You softly begged me to help you get rid of Tming and Fengmingi. You begged me to help you get rid of Tming and Fengmingi. You begged me to help you settle the 1 billion yuan financing. Seeing how you begged me, I couldn't bear to do it. After leaving the resort, I did it." Feng Ling, she turned to look around and suddenly looked in the direction of the kitchen. Li Nanhing raised his brows. "Why aren't you speaking? What are you doing?" Feng Ling's face was expressionless. "I'm looking for the knife I used to kill the chicken." Li Nanhing. "Huh? I just noticed that I actually have double monthly votes again. It's the end of the month. Dads with monthly votes, please pamper me. I want to chat with more like-minded people about, young Master Mo, have you kissed me enough? Talk about life, find a confidant W. For M. Chapter 1387. Los Angeles, the Li family. I didn't expect Feng Ling to take care of Nanhing by herself. She's taking good care of him. The third elder of the Li family received a report from the front line and sat leisurely in the back garden of the Li family, drinking tea and speaking. The fourth elder of the Li family, who was walking and feeding the birds in the back garden, glanced at him. "Where did you get the news?" "I bribed Xiao Su, who often follows Nanhing, and asked him to visit Nanhing and Feng Ling's place every few days to deliver things. Even if it arouses their suspicion, it won't be a big deal. At most, we'll just treat it as us being worried about them," the third elder of the Li family said. "I heard from Xiao Su that Nanhing has been recuperating at Feng Ling's place for half a month after he was discharged from the hospital. His complexion looks much better. And because Feng Ling is with him every moment of the day, the effect of his recovery should be better than anywhere else." The fourth elder of the Li family sneered. Back then, when Nanhing was young, he was so mischievous that it was common for him to jump into a well in his own back garden. Back then, we all thought that this brat would definitely be an unruly ruffian when he grew up. Who knew that after leaving him in the base for so many years, he would become an infatuated man in the blink of an eye? He only cares about his wife and doesn't care about anything else. He really takes after his grandfather's personality. At this moment, Nanhing's grandfather, the eldest of the Li family, Li Junyan, had just walked out with a walking stick. When he heard this, he glanced at them. "What do you mean takes after me? Nanhing's infatuation is too similar to when you were young. If his grandmother hadn't passed away early, you would still be doting on your wife like she's your ancestor." The third elder Li smiled. Li Junyan's expression was cold and he was too lazy to speak. At this moment, the second elder of the Li family interrupted with a smile. In the past few decades, our big brother has only been deeply in love with Nanhing's grandmother. He really can't be bothered to look at other women. Even his strange preference for men is very similar to us brothers. Nanhing's grandmother must have accumulated several generations of virtue for our big brother to be so loyal. The fourth elder smiled. That's right. In Big Brother's eyes, there is only one woman in this world, and that is Nanhing's grandmother. The other women are all pink holes, and they are all crying. None of them can enter his eyes. Li Junyan, third elderly, raised his eyebrows and said, "That's why I say that although Nanhing is a rascal, he still carries on the good tradition of our old Li family in his bones. Once he has set his mind on one woman, the other women are all fleeting. Just this one is enough to make him hover between life and death. I just don't know when he can marry her." I think it's going to be difficult. Second brother suddenly sneered and shook his head. The three elders turned to look at Li Tianlan in unison. What's so difficult about it? Second elderly raised his half-white eyebrows. He's so badly injured. Right now, he's so weak that he can't even defeat a little girl like Fengling. I wonder if he still has the ability to carry on the family line. The old men fell silent at the same time. No way. I don't think so. Our grandson knows what he's doing. When the explosion happened, he would definitely have blocked it, right? It's hard to say. What if there really is a problem? The boss of the Li family, Li Junyan, suddenly coughed coldly and cleared his throat. The other three quickly shut their mouths. Li Junyan said with a cold expression, "From tomorrow onwards, ask that Xiao Su to send them more tonics every day. Make up for whatever they lack. Sea cucumber, deer penis, bull penis, and all sorts of things to strengthen their vitality and nourish their kidneys." In the morning, Fengling did the same thing as she did every day. She applied medicine on Li Nanhing's eyes and massaged his head to relieve the pressure on his optic nerves caused by the blood clots. When the doorbell rang, she didn't need to guess to know that it was Xiao Su, who would come over to deliver things every 2 days. At first, she thought that Qin Shuk had contacted him, but after a few times, she guessed that the 4 elders of the Li family had asked Xiao Su to come over to visit. Fengling went to open the door. She thought that Xiao Su was bringing some food over, but this time, Xiao Su was carrying 2 boxes. "Hi, good morning." Xiao Su smiled when he saw Fengling open the door. Fengling's expression was expressionless. She glanced at him. "What did you send today?" Xiao Su didn't waste any time and raised the box. These. In the future, stew some for Boss Li every day. Put it in various soups and dishes, or boil it in clear water. It's fine." Fengling took the box and only saw the words "Big Supplement" written on it. She nodded. "All right, I understand. Then I won't disturb you anymore. I'll come back in 2 days. Remember to give it to Boss." "Definitely." "Okay. As for you, if you want to eat it, you can eat it, but you'd better eat less." Seeing Fengling's confused expression, Xiao Su didn't say anything else. He chuckled and waved his hand before slipping away. Fengling watched Xiao Su's back in confusion as he walked to the elevator. She closed the door and walked in with the box in her hand. "What did you send this time?" Li Nanhing was no longer surprised by this. He sat on the sofa as usual, closing his eyes and waiting for Fengling to massage him. Fengling didn't speak. She took the 2 boxes to the coffee table in front of the sofa and placed them on the coffee table. "These are 2 tonic gift boxes." "Gift box?" Li Nanhing was amused. "The elders are all elders. Why did they send me gift boxes?" As she spoke, Fengling had already opened the gift box and took out several exquisite boxes. "Sea cucumber?" Fengling said. Hearing this, Li Nanhing turned his face to her. "Pig kidney." Fengling continued to read. Li Nanhing, sheep kidney. Deer penis, venison, cattle penis, turtle meat. Li Nanhing, Fengling opened the 2 boxes and looked at them with a puzzled expression. "What are these things for? Are they for nourishing blood? The chicken, duck, and goose that were sent over a few days ago, as well as all kinds of medicinal soup? What are these? I've never seen them before. How do they boil them in water?" Li Nanhing touched his forehead speechlessly. Did the elders of the Li family think that he was injured? Did they give him so many things to strengthen his vitality and nourish his kidneys because they were afraid that he would be impotent? Seeing that Li Nanhing didn't speak, Fengling looked up at him again. "Do you know how to cook these?" Li Nanhing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He raised his hand in the air. "Put it down. Put it down. I don't need these things. W. For M." Chapter 1388. These are all tonics. They must be helpful to your body. Why don't you use them? Fengling felt strange. Li Nanhing put down his hand and raised his eyes. He couldn't see, but he could still accurately look at Feng Ling's face. Are you sure you want me to eat them? The Li family must have asked Xiao Su to send them. Good things must be eaten. Feng Ling put the things back into the box and answered. Li Nanhing sighed with a smile. All right, then be mentally prepared. Prepare for what? Li Nanhing couldn't hold back his laughter. He leaned back on the sofa. Put them away first. I have a headache. Help me massage them again. Only then did Feng Ling shift her attention away from the two gift boxes. After putting the things back into the box, she returned to the sofa, raised her hand, and continued to massage his head. Does it still hurt? Li Nanhing didn't answer, but the corners of his mouth curved slightly, as if something funny had just happened. Feng Ling looked down at him and didn't ask more. After massaging him for a while, she applied medicine to his eyes. When she was applying the medicine, she saw that there was a faint smile on his lips. She was very puzzled. Li Nanhing, are you in a good mood today? I've always been in a good mood. Why? Feng Ling put away the gift box. Anyway, these could be stored temporarily. It was much easier to store than the chickens, ducks, and geese that Xiao Su sent over every day. She was indeed not in a hurry. She counted the days. Half a month ago, you said you wanted to eat fish, but in the past half a month, Xiao Su sent over too many things to eat. I haven't had the chance to make fish for you. Do you want to eat it today? Yes. Then I'll drive to the supermarket to buy fish. Don't go anywhere by yourself at home. Or do you want to go back to the bedroom and lie down to rest? Do you think I'm a child? Are you so worried about me staying at home alone? I'm afraid that you'll hurt yourself when you walk back and forth. If I'm not at home, I won't be able to come back to help you in time. Li Nanhing sighed with a smile. I should be much better than when I first came back. It won't be a big deal even if I walk for half an hour. Shall I accompany you to the supermarket? Feng Ling glanced at him and then at the furnishings in the room. Although there was nothing that could trip him, she had probably really taken care of this man for a long time. That feeling of worry had been lingering around her. She always felt that if she left, Li Nanhing would fall into the toilet when he went to the toilet. In the parking lot under the apartment building, Li Nanhing, who was personally helped by Feng Ling to change his clothes, stood by the car door and successfully sat in the back seat of the car. Why didn't you let me sit in the passenger seat? Li Nanhing asked. It's safer to sit in the back. Feng Ling closed the car door for him, walked to the front, and sat in the driver's seat. Sitting in the spacious car that should have belonged to him, Li Nanhing smiled. Isn't sitting here equivalent to treating you as a driver? It doesn't matter as long as it's safe. Feng Ling didn't explain much and drove the car out of the parking lot. This was the first time Feng Ling took Li Nanhing out alone after he was discharged from the hospital. A few days ago, she would at most help him walk on the balcony, sit, and bask in the sun, but this was the first time she went downstairs. Feng Ling's original intention was that Li Nanhing's body couldn't withstand any violent impact. Even if he could, she didn't dare to let him suffer any more. Even though she was very confident in her driving skills, she was afraid that something would happen, so she didn't dare to take the risk of letting him sit in the passenger seat. Li Nanhing understood what she meant and didn't say much. However, he had to admit that although Feng Ling's personality was always straightforward, she had a lot of feminine side in her nature. She was very delicate, but she was not good at showing it, and this delicate side could only be understood in daily life and from knowing her too well. Especially the warmth hidden in her words, it was real. The supermarket was not too far from here. It was less than 10 minutes drive, and it was easy to find a parking space. When the car stopped, Li Nanhing fumbled around the car door, picked up the pair of sunglasses from the glove box, and put them on. The main thing was that there were 2 pieces of gauze on his eyes. It looked very ordinary at home, but if he walked out like this, others would really think that he had poked his eyes. If he wore sunglasses, at least passers-by wouldn't be able to see anything. At most, they would think that he was blind. Feng Ling helped him out of the car. It was almost noon, and the sun was just right. Li Nanhing couldn't see anything in the sunglasses, but he instinctively narrowed his eyes under the sun. Feng Ling noticed his subtle movements and couldn't help asking, "Can you see the light?" If there was no gauze on my eyes, I might be able to see it. Now that there is gauze, how can I see it? I just instinctively feel the sun. Li Nanhing chuckled softly. Feng Ling was speechless. She helped him to the escalator outside the supermarket. In the elevator, Li Nanhing put one hand in his trouser pocket and the other hand was held by Feng Ling. It was as though the scene of him being held by Feng Ling the most in the past was perfect. Feng Ling supported him with one hand and held the map of the supermarket's internal shopping area that she had picked up from the elevator with the other hand. She was looking for the place to sell fish. "What color am I wearing today?" Li Nanhing asked leisurely. Feng Ling helped him out of the elevator and into the supermarket's main entrance. As they walked, she answered, "Black sportswear. I bought it for you online 2 days ago. It's the first time you've worn it. It fits you well. What about you? What color are you wearing?" "Me?" Feng Ling took the time to look down at her clothes. "White sportswear. It's similar to the one you're wearing. It's very loose and comfortable." Li Nanhing's lips curved up again. "Couple style?" Feng Ling was silent for a moment. "Sort of." "What do you mean sort of?" "I bought it at the same time. It must have been bought in the same store. It's the same sportswear, and it's a black and white match. If it's not a couple style, what is it?" "I couldn't tell. It turns out that you also know how to think when you're in love. I thought you didn't know anything. I just casually bought 2 clothes that are more comfortable to wear. I'm tired of wearing those formal suits in the past 2 years." "Don't explain. I understand your feelings for me." Li Nanhing, who was wearing sunglasses, walked forward with a pleased expression. "Feng Ling, don't be shy. I accept it. Just wear it like this in the future." Feng Ling. She wanted to talk about, "Young Master Mo, have you kissed me enough?" with more like-minded people. W. For M. Chapter 1389. In the supermarket, Li Nanhing strode forward as though he could see the road. There was clearly someone pushing a shopping cart in front of him, but he almost bumped into it. Feng Ling, who was worried, followed behind. She tugged at his hand and helped him adjust his direction. She quickly pulled over a shopping cart and pushed it in front. Li Nanhing was unconvinced. He also reached out and placed his hand on the shopping cart. "I'll help you." Feng Ling chuckled in her heart. "You'd better follow behind obediently. Don't get lost or bump into anything. It's better not to help." Although she felt this way in her heart, in order not to hurt Li Nanhing's slightly inflated heart, she endured it. After all, it was not suitable for her to shop for too long with a disabled person. Feng Ling wanted to quickly buy the fish and various ingredients she needed. She walked forward directly, and her speed was a little fast. Li Nanhing's height and legs could keep up. Earlier, he had been sitting in a car and did not walk much. His stamina was still good. When they were about to reach the fresh food area, Li Nanhing said, "We're almost there." Knowing that his nose and ears were especially sensitive, Feng Ling did not answer. She pushed the cart over and brought Li Nanhing along. She chose 2 fish. She was tired of killing the chickens, ducks, and geese she had recently killed, so she asked the staff in the supermarket to help her clean the fish. While waiting for the fish, she pushed the cart to buy some ingredients. She also bought some snacks for Li Nanhing, some peanuts, longan, red dates, and so on. Of course, what Li Nanhing could not see was that these things were sold at the counter for women's menstrual supplements. Otherwise, he would have chosen to buy them elsewhere with a livid face. After walking half a circle in the supermarket, Li Nanhing's face was not red or out of breath. It seemed that his recuperation these past few days was indeed very effective. Perhaps the supplements he had eaten were also good. From this, Feng Ling considered the tonics in the 2 gift boxes at home. She thought that in a few days, she should find time to put those into the soup to nourish him. The things the Li family asked Xiao Su to send were definitely not bad. They were all very nutritious. He was about to go to another area. When he passed by the liquor area, he suddenly turned his head and sniffed. "Is there a liquor cellar here?" Coincidentally, there were a few tall wine barrels by the side. There were also people selling wine there. Feng Ling glanced at them and said without hesitation, "Don't think about it. You can't drink it now." Li Nanhing, who had been forced to quit smoking and drinking for a long time because of his injuries, was quite pained. "It smells like red wine. Isn't it good for the body to drink less red wine? I definitely won't let you drink it. Just give up. Li Nanhing, forget it." He couldn't see right now. When he left, he didn't even bring his wallet or phone. If Feng Ling left him here in a fit of anger, he would probably go begging on the streets. In front of Chief Feng, who was in charge of food, clothing, and finances, he didn't want to drink anymore. However, before she walked out of the liquor area, a person who brushed past her suddenly stopped. "Feng Ling?" Hearing that voice, Feng Ling only found it familiar at first, but before she could figure out who it was, Li Nanhing's face darkened and he put on a cold expression. Feng Ling turned to see Qiao Fei, who she hadn't seen for many years. Beside Qiao Fei was a young lady dressed in beautiful clothes. It seemed like they were chatting and laughing as they pushed the shopping cart over. "It should be, girlfriend?" Feng Ling immediately smiled politely at Qiao Fei. "Long time no see." Qiao Fei was also very surprised to see her in Los Angeles. In the past few years, he hadn't asked about her, but he had heard that she had returned to the Feng family and went to the Feng Corporation. She no longer had anything to do with the base. Looking at Fengling, whose long hair was tied behind her head and who was used to wearing sportswear, Qiao Fei's eyes lit up. However, it was clear that he was no longer as infatuated and thirsty for her as he used to be. He only smiled and said, "Yes, it's indeed been a long time. Why did you suddenly return to Los Angeles? Shouldn't you be in New York?" Before he could finish speaking, Qiao Fei's gaze landed on the cold-faced fiend standing next to Fengling. He was startled. "Boss Li?" Before Fengling could explain, Qiao Fei raised his brows again. "You're still wearing such thick sunglasses in the super room. Boss's lifestyle and taste in recent years have changed a lot?" Fengling chuckled. "No, his eyes are, and I'm happy." Li Nanhing pushed the car beside her, indicating for her not to speak carelessly. At the same time, his voice was cold and emotionless. Fengling, the young lady beside Qiao Fei, asked him something in a low voice. Qiao Fei smiled and said something to her warmly. He then turned to look at Fengling. "I'm going to visit my girlfriend's parents tonight. I still need to buy some gifts. I don't have much time, so I won't disturb you. Shall we have a drink another day?" "All right." Fengling nodded at him. Another day. Hearing the words "another day," Li Nanhing's expression turned even colder. Qiao Fei politely said something to Fengling and then walked away with his girlfriend. Fengling was about to continue pushing the shopping cart forward. However, before she could push it, she saw that Li Nanhing's expression was filled with the words, "I'm not happy." "What date? Have you forgotten the rule that people from the base can't meet frequently after they leave?" Li Nanhing's voice was cold. Fengling rolled her eyes at him. "How many years has it been? Is it worth being jealous over this?" "Didn't you see Qiao Fei with his girlfriend?" "I didn't see it," Li Nanhing said honestly. Fengling. She was so angry, but she couldn't vent her anger. "Then you should have heard it. He said he was going to see his girlfriend's parents. Just now, his girlfriend held his arm and walked with him. They were so affectionate. It's clear that he has already let go of me. Why are you still jealous? If he has let go of you, why are you still asking him out?" "I was just being polite. He asked the woman he once liked to drink with him in front of his girlfriend. His purpose is not pure, and you still agreed?" Fengling clenched her fists and gritted her teeth to say, "Then according to what you said, after leaving the base, we can't meet frequently in private. What are the two of us now? Should I send you back to the Li family right now and never talk to you again?" Li Nanhing choked for a moment and didn't speak until he felt that Fengling couldn't be bothered with him and directly pushed the shopping cart forward. He quickly chased after her and grabbed her arm. "This is not the same. I'm leaving the base with you. There is no distinction between the two of us. We are one. It's different from the surname Qiao, surname Dou, and surname Mao. Go away." Fengling didn't want to pay attention to this 10,000-year-old vinegar jar. "I can't go away. I can't see. I'll fall. My internal injuries haven't healed yet." Li Nanhing held her hand and didn't let go. At the same time, he raised his hand to cover his chest. Fengling also held her chest, feeling that she was about to suffer internal injuries. Haha, on the last day of the month, there is a double monthly ticket activity. Asking for monthly tickets. I want to chat with more like-minded people about, young Master Mo, have you kissed enough? Chat about life, and find a confidant W. For M. Chapter 1390. Fortunately, Qiao Fei really came with his girlfriend. The two of them had already gone to pay the bill lovingly. Otherwise, who knew how long Li Nanhing's face would be? Fengling ignored him and Li Nanhing walked behind him. In any case, she couldn't really leave him here in his current state. Li Nanhing placed one hand on the shopping cart and the other in his trouser pocket as he followed her. The fish was ready. Fengling went over to take it. When she turned back, she saw that Li Nanhing obediently placed his hand on the shopping cart and did not take a step away. Her heart softened. Anyway, he couldn't see her, so she sighed helplessly and smiled. In the past, when Qiao Fei was at the base, he was jealous. Now, he was also jealous. Did he really care about her to this extent? What was so good about her? Fengling gently placed the bag containing the fish into the shopping cart and walked over to stand in front of Li Nanhing. However, she maintained a distance of about a meter between them and just looked at him. The man was at least a head taller than her. She raised her face slightly and looked at him without making a sound. When she walked over, there was no sound under her feet. There were people coming and going here, so he might not be able to hear anything. Li Nanhing stood there. As expected, after waiting for a while, he did not hear her return. His expression did not change. At first, he waited leisurely and relaxed. Gradually, he stood straighter and then looked in the direction of the seafood area for a while, as though he was not sure if she had gone to buy something else or was delayed by something. However, he could not see, and he could not walk around. After all, he could not see. If he really walked away, no one could predict what would happen. Especially if Feng Ling came back later and found that he had disappeared, she would definitely be angry. Li Nanhing stood there without moving. However, his left hand was casually placed on the armrest of the shopping cart and the other hand was in his trouser pocket. At this moment, he raised his right hand and placed both hands on the shopping cart. With just a very slight movement, he changed from indifferent and leisurely to obediently holding the shopping cart and waiting for her to come back to find him. Feng Ling found it somewhat funny. She suddenly raised her hand to help him adjust his sunglasses, but the man habitually raised his hand and quickly held her wrist. She could not see his eyes, but she could instantly feel the coldness on his face. However, in the next moment, when he realized that the person in front of him was Feng Ling, the coldness on the man's face instantly disappeared. At the same time, he slowly moved his hand up and held her hand. "Why did you take so long to come back?" Feng Ling smiled, but her laughter did not come from her mouth. Instead, she spoke calmly as though nothing had happened. "I bought some other things earlier and was delayed for a few minutes." Li Nanhing's expression had relaxed, but he did not let go of her hand. "Are you going back now?" Feng Ling did not shake him off. She only curved her lips into a smile and pushed the shopping cart with him to the checkout area. As they walked, she said, "Did you think someone wanted to touch you? You stood in front of me without moving. Suddenly, I felt someone's hand approaching. It was only 0.1 seconds. A normal person would be on guard," Li Nanhing said calmly. However, since he said this, it meant that he had already understood that she must have deliberately not made a sound in front of him. She said that she went to buy something else at the last minute, but it was just an excuse to fool him. He did not argue with her. There were too many people at the checkout counter. Feng Ling simply went to the self-service cash register with Li Nanhing to pay and then left with the 2 shopping bags. After going downstairs, she placed the things she bought into the car. Feng Ling looked at the sky and narrowed her eyes at the direction of the sun. The weather was very good. "Do you want to go home directly or find a place with good air to take a walk? I think you should be able to hold on today's physical strength." Feng Ling also evaluated him based on the strength he suddenly held her wrist. It could be seen that although Li Nanhing's body needed to rest and his physical strength was indeed much weaker than before, in an emergency, his strength would not be weak. "Up to you." Li Nanhing stood by the car and listened to the sound of her putting the things into the trunk. He also looked in the direction of the warm sunlight and turned his face. As if feeling that the weather was really good, he said, "Is there an amusement park on the way back?" After all, Li Nanhing used to go to that apartment often, and he did know the various buildings and facilities nearby better than her. It seems so. "I didn't pay much attention." "Let's go to the amusement park for a walk." Feng Ling couldn't figure it out. The two of them were adults. Why didn't they find a park suitable for walking and basking in the sun? Why did they go to the amusement park? However, it seemed that the amusement park happened to be on the way back. They didn't even need to change the direction of the car. It was just on the way back. It was very convenient, so she didn't object. "All right, then let's go for a walk." Li Nanhing smiled. Feng Ling glanced at him again and found that after this man was injured, perhaps because he couldn't see, his smile was no longer so annoying. He would always smile a little softer and more restrained because there were too many invisible uncertainties in front of him. He was clearly still the same person, but he seemed to have become a little more cautious in some unnoticeable habits. This caution came from his eyes. He had never said that he minded whether he could see or not, but no one would feel comfortable in the darkness every day, not knowing whether it was day or night. Feng Ling closed the trunk, reached out to take his arm, helped him to the car door, and opened the door. "Let's go, get in the car. Let's go to the amusement park." Li Nanhing seemed to be a little reluctant to part with the warm sunlight outside the car. After entering the car, Feng Ling helped him open the back window. Anyway, it was not cold, but the weather was not hot enough to turn on the air conditioner in the car. After driving all the way to the amusement park, Feng Ling found a place closest to the main entrance and parked the car. When she got out, she happened to see a passage extending from the outside to the inside of the amusement park. On both sides were all kinds of children's toys, food, and drinks. There were many children blowing bubbles around. "You sent Momo to the Feng family?" Li Nanhing heard the laughter of the children around him and asked softly as Feng Ling held his arm and walked. "I sent him to my grandparents' side. This way, they will have someone to accompany them. I can rest assured." Chapter 1391. At this point, Feng Ling said, "I saw Dr. Wen last time." Li Nanhing did not say anything. As he walked, he felt the warmth of the sun, as though waiting for her to continue. He doesn't know about little Momo's existence, does he? Li Nanhing did not speak at first. After a moment, he said, I only know the gist of it. Wen Liqing isn't someone who will complain to others about everything. I don't have much contact with her in private. I only heard some gossip from some relatives of the Li family who have dealings with the Wen family. So you don't know why she chose to take such a step? You don't know why she hid the existence of the child? I only know that she hid it, but I really don't know the reason. She didn't tell anyone about her relationship with Wen Linhan. How could I know so much inside information? As Li Nanhing spoke, he emphasized, I don't even know what the woman I like thinks every day. How can I have the time to care about other women? Feng Ling was not angry. I don't know why you said you wanted to come to the amusement park. I didn't ask, did I? Because you like it. Feng Ling? She stopped in her tracks and turned to look at him in surprise. When did I say I liked this kind of place? Li Nanhing curved his lips meaningfully. At this moment, the children playing by the side were too noisy. He turned his head and whispered a few words in her ear. Feng Ling was stunned at first, then stunned, and then surprised. In the end, her eyes widened in disbelief. She had never been so idiotic. Li Nanhing only smiled. All right, I know there's still a little girl living in your heart, but you've locked her up. I can't see her now. Even if you're so happy that your nose is bubbling, I won't laugh at you. Feng Ling, she walked into the amusement park with Li Nanhing in disbelief. She looked at the many entertainment facilities. This amusement park was very big, and all the facilities were several times larger than those in Mr. Mike's resort. Furthermore, there were many people queuing up for every item. Feng Ling found it unbelievable. After drinking too much, she dragged Li Nanhing to the children's playground and forced him to play with her on the slide and seesaw. However, those were indeed purely children's projects. There were many exciting projects in this amusement park. She looked at the roller coaster and thought for a moment before turning to look at Li Nanhing. Roller coaster or merry-go-round? Li Nanhing asked her, where do you want to sit? The merry-go-round. That's safer. Your body can't handle too much stimulation and turbulence, especially in your eyes. It's better for this kind of stable event. Before she could finish, the man grabbed her hand and pulled her in another direction. Roller coaster. Feng Ling, then why did he ask her? She didn't know if Li Nanhing wanted to play or if she wanted to play, but Feng Ling couldn't be bothered to argue with him. She only observed for a while and confirmed that although the roller coaster was fast, it started and stopped smoothly. When it was too fast in the middle, she could only feel the wind. There was no danger or impact on him, so she went to buy the tickets. When they sat on it, a staff member came over to buckle the safety handle for them. Feng Ling turned to look at Li Nanhing. When you can't see, your fear should increase by dozens of times. Hold it in and don't scream. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll laugh at you for the rest of your life. Li Nanhing snorted. I didn't even feel anything when the helicopter dropped a rope ladder at a high altitude. It's just a roller coaster. Before he could finish speaking, it began. Feng Ling was expressionless and indifferent to this speed. Like him, she had received high-altitude rope ladder training and had undergone all kinds of high-altitude speeding training. Indeed, she did not feel anything. Her heartbeat did not change. After a few laps, the young men, women, and children who were screaming the entire time turned pale. Some were happy and excited, while others were frightened. Only Li Nanhing and Feng Ling, who were sitting in the front two seats, did not change their expressions. After the two of them untied the safety handle and went down, Li Nanhing looked regretful. It's not exciting enough. The staff member who was waiting to hear the praise instantly pulled a long face. Feng Ling was speechless and hurriedly pulled Li Nanhing, who couldn't see his face, away. That's why I said this kind of thing is boring. How could I possibly pull you to play on the slide? Li Nanhing, your ability to make up lies is so childish. What you said will definitely not happen. Feng Ling was very sure. Li Nanhing chuckled coldly and did not argue with her. He stopped and looked in another direction. What's going on over there? Why are there so many screams? An island ship. Oh, that's boring. Go home or? Is there any dessert shop or ice cream shop? Li Nanhing asked. Feng Ling was puzzled. What was wrong with this man today? She looked around. There's an ice cream shop, but there are a lot of people lining up. Do you want to eat? You want to eat. Feng Ling. Why is it me again? Li Nanhing was not sturdy. He moved his chin forward and gestured for her to help him buy ice cream. Feng Ling had no choice. Since the injured big boss had already made a request, she could only satisfy him. She could only pull him over and obediently line up at the back of the crowd. She did not jump in line with the children in front of her. After queuing for about 20 minutes, it was finally their turn. They bought a mango-flavored ice cream and a blueberry-flavored ice cream. Feng Ling had been fond of blueberry-flavored desserts for so many years, so she really ate this one. She ate as she walked. Seeing that Li Nanhing did not eat much, she chose an empty bench to sit down on. At this moment, Feng Ling felt that this scene was like a young couple in love. It was more like an old couple sitting here eating ice cream while watching the various children playing nearby. The sun was warm, the ice cream was sweet, and the people around her gave her enough security. It seemed that in her life since she was young, whether it was in the base or the Feng family, she had never felt this kind of peace and tranquility. Perhaps she had, but it was in the jungle that had been burned down a few years ago. As she dug into the ice cream in the cup, she said, "There's news about Kay's customized prosthesis. He'll be able to stand up in a few days. I reckon he'll be able to jump over to visit you." "What? Are you worried about my eyes again?" Li Nanhing chuckled disapprovingly. Feng Ling glanced at him. "I'm just thinking, when will the blood clot pressing on your optic nerve disappear?" Li Nanhing raised his hand. He did not need to fumble in the air and accurately held her shoulder. "There's no rush. He has a prosthesis. Don't I still have you as my eyes?" Chapter 1392. Before Feng Ling could speak, Li Nanhing slowly raised his hand from her shoulder and stroked her eyes. "And these eyes are big and bright. They're much better than Kay's fake eyes made of equipment." Feng Ling raised her hand and was about to pull his hand down, but the man did not let go. Instead, he caressed her eyes and nodded in satisfaction. "The bones around the eye sockets are also so good. Even when you grow old, you'll still be a beauty." After being teased for some reason, Feng Ling found that every time she wanted to say something seriously, she couldn't do anything to him. On the way back, Feng Ling brought Li Nanhing into the barber shop and asked someone to tidy up his hair. In the end, the trimmed length was the same as before. It was not a particularly short buzz cut, but it was not as long as a few days ago. In short, it was very energetic and good-looking. When he walked out of the barber shop wearing sunglasses, he looked no different from usual. His complexion had long recovered, except that he was slightly thinner than before. A few days ago, Feng Ling had said that Kay would probably come to visit in a few days. In the end, she was right. The day after Kay put on the prosthetic leg, he spent a day getting used to it. Then, he happily left the wheelchair in a handsome suit and came with the brothers of the sniper team. At that time, Li Nanhing was sleeping in the bedroom. After taking the medicine at noon, he had to sleep for 2 hours because of the medicine. He was already used to it. At 2:00 in the afternoon, he was woken up by the laughter outside the living room. He casually tugged at his somewhat fluffy and messy hair and walked out of the bedroom while feeling the air. Originally, Tam, Lin Cheng, and the others were sitting in the living room, chatting and laughing. When they suddenly turned around and saw Boss Li, especially since Boss Li's eyes were not bandaged, they didn't know if he could see them with his eyes open. They instinctively kept quiet. The atmosphere immediately became tense, and they didn't dare to make any noise. Feng Ling was packing up the various fruits and gifts that Tam and the others had sent over. When she heard that the living room had suddenly become silent, she poked half her head out of the kitchen to take a look. She saw that the 4 of them had changed from angry lions to obedient puppies because Boss Li had woken up. They all quickly raised their hands to their mouths and gestured for them to be quiet. Feng Ling sighed and smiled. Although Li Nanhing had left the base in name, he was still the boss in the eyes of these brothers. They immediately became obedient when they saw him. "What are you all doing? Why are you shouting?" Li Nanhing walked out with an expression as if he had just been woken up from his sleep. When Boss walked in the direction of the sofa, his steps were steady and straight. He didn't even need to raise his hand to feel around. It didn't seem like he couldn't see anything at all. Tam, Lin Cheng, Kay, and the others just sat there and watched in a daze. Could it be that Boss's eyes were beautiful? However, when Li Nanhing walked to the sofa, he found that Lin Cheng was sitting on the coffee table and his leg was blocking his way. Li Nanhing kicked him. "Move your leg away." Lin Cheng hurriedly retracted his legs in fright. Then he saw Li Nanhing slowly sit down on the sofa. He didn't look at any of them. Instead, he casually touched the sofa and touched a light blue pillow that looked like a girl's heart. He then sat there. Looking at Boss, who was no longer as thin as before, holding such a thing in his arms, the 4 of them exchanged glances. They were sure that Boss's eyes hadn't recovered yet. He probably didn't even know what this pillow looked like or what color it was. "Well, Boss, we brought Kay over to see you." Tam stood up from the sofa and patted Lei Peng and Lin Cheng, who were in the way. The 3 of them sat on the coffee table, leaving only Kay and Boss to sit on the sofa. Kay also remembered that Tam had given him a look, indicating for him to sit a little closer to the side and not touch Boss. After all, he was also an injured patient. Even if Boss wanted to find fault with someone, he definitely wouldn't do anything to him. Although that was what he said, sitting on the same sofa as Boss really made him feel more pressured. Especially since his life was saved by Boss. First, Boss saved his life, and then Fengling went to pick up their lives. Boss, you and Fengling arranged for Kay's prosthetic leg, right? It's too realistic, okay? After putting it on, it doesn't look any different from before, and it's especially sturdy and flexible. Yesterday, he almost went to the training ground to wrestle with us, Lin Cheng said as he reached out and patted Kay's knee. Aya, F***CK, be gentle. Kay hurriedly dodged his leg to the side in pain. Didn't you say it doesn't hurt? Lin Cheng was surprised. Nonsense, I definitely won't hurt if you patted my prosthetic leg. Just now, you directly patted the flesh of my knee. I'll use this strength to pat you a few times. Try to see if it hurts? Do you think I'm made of iron? Kay said as he moved his leg to a safe position. Noisy. Li Nanhing raised his hand and rubbed between his eyebrows. His indifferent words successfully silenced the 4 people in front of him and made them as quiet as chickens. Kay thought for a moment and moved closer to Li Nanhing. Boss, I've been lying in bed since we were injured in Israel. I haven't had the chance to formally thank you. After all, I can stand up now. I just wanted to come over and say hello to you. There's no need to say anything. Just be quiet and don't bother me. Tisk, boss, I mean, can't you see that I can stand up now? But boss, in order to save me, you really paid a big price. Even now, your eyes haven't recovered. Boss, in the future, my eyes will be your eyes. When you need me, I'll come. Or if medicine is developed to a certain extent, I'll dig out my eyes for you. Perhaps because Kay's words were too bloody, the living room fell silent. Li Nanhing frowned, his expression somewhat disdainful. Really, boss, my eyesight is very good. If I dig it out for you, I think you can, don't. Li Nanhing raised his hand in resistance and pushed Kay's head away. With your shifty-eyed appearance, you still want to put your eyes on my face? Do you know what it means to ruin a face with a pair of eyes? My perfect face can't be ruined by those eyes of yours. Today's candy has been delivered. Happy Labor Day holiday. The first day of May seems to be during the double monthly votes campaign. Begging for monthly votes, 1 vote becomes 2 votes, don't miss it. Dads. Begging for monthly votes to extend my life. Chapter 1393. Oh, my God, what's this? Fengling was used to cooking by herself every day in the past month, so she simply cooked a few more dishes. After bringing them to the table one by one, Lei Ping jumped up in surprise and dragged Tam and Lin Cheng over. Our little Fengling is going to show off her cooking skills. Sure enough, women are different. If you really study cooking carefully, you will soon learn it. Tam reached out and quietly grabbed a piece of meat and stuffed it into his mouth. He was amazed by the delicious taste and hurriedly picked up a tissue to wipe his hands, lest Fengling glared at him when she came out and found him eating with his hands. In the end, when Fengling came out, she saw that Li Nanhing was still sitting on the sofa, disdaining Kay's various organs, from his eyes to his neck to his mouth, and finally, even his fingernails. Facing the boss he had always admired and now his savior, Kay was still very touched. On the dining table, the dishes that were originally filled with dishes were now inexplicably missing something. Either a few prawns were missing from one dish, or a few pieces of meat were missing from another dish. However, it seemed that the cutlery had not been touched. The others were also standing by the table with serious expressions. Fengling's expression was a little strange. She looked at them carefully. Tam waved at her with a smile. When will the meal be ready? Soon, right away. After speaking, Fengling turned to bring out the last medicinal soup she had just learned. When she walked to the dining table, she saw that there seemed to be 2 less prawns on the table. She turned to look at the culprit, Tam, and saw that he secretly clenched a tissue in his hand that he hadn't thrown away yet. She was angry and amused. If you are hungry, sit down and eat. Why are you standing there? I'm waiting for you to serve all the dishes. Although I have eaten your food before, it's rare for it to be so sumptuous. Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, Tam chuckled and quickly sat down. Lin Cheng and Lei Ping looked back at the direction of the sofa and then gave Tam a look, indicating that boss hadn't come to sit down yet. Tam paused and turned his eyes. Kay, help boss come to eat. Hearing this, Kay hurriedly stood up and quickly helped Li Nanhing, who was still stuffed with a pillow in his arms. Li Nanhing raised his eyebrows. Your legs are really flexible. Hee hee. Kay smiled. Boss, let me help you over. In fact, Li Nanhing could get up and find the table by himself, but Kay's attitude was too enthusiastic. Li Nanhing didn't say anything more and let Kay help him walk. Then these lackeys acted as though they had seen the emperor arrive. Some helped him up, some pulled the chair, and some prepared the tableware. Only when Li Nanhing sat down properly did they heave a sigh of relief. In this world, except for Li Nanhing, no one knew Feng Ling's cooking better than him. Smelling the fragrance of the various dishes on the table, Li Nanhing was not in a hurry to eat. Instead, he raised his eyebrows proudly as if praising himself for his wife. How is it? It tastes good? Not bad, really not bad. It's simply delicious. Tam had already picked up the tableware and started to eat the various dishes on the table. With a shrimp in his mouth, he said, I remember that the food cooked by Feng Ling was edible before, but now it's really delicious. Kay also sat down. It seems that I have tasted Feng Ling's cooking more times than you. Tam immediately gave Kay a, do you want to die, look. Kay paused and then turned to see Boss Li's unfocused eyes. He immediately paused and hurriedly said to save himself, cough, in fact, I haven't tasted it many times. Among so many of us, only Boss has tasted it the most times. Ha ha ha. Li Nanhing coldly glanced at him, and Kay hurriedly lowered his head to pick up the tableware to eat. After taking a few bites, Lin Cheng said, in fact, Feng Ling used very little oil, salt, and seasoning. This is all because Boss is not suitable for food with too much oil and salt, right? You can still make it so delicious in this case. It can be seen that Feng Ling really worked hard to satisfy Boss's desire for good food and nourish his body at the same time. I saw a few pieces of paper stuck on the range hood in the kitchen just now. I took a look at them. They seem to be recipes and seasoning methods. Yes, I also saw that the iPad is lit up. It seems to be a recipe. Feng Ling is so hardworking now. Boss, you will really be blessed in the future. Li Nanhing was very satisfied with being flattered. He sat at the dining table and picked up the tableware. In fact, his movements were very smooth. However, because he had gradually gotten used to life, no matter what he did, it seemed that his eyes would not affect him. Seeing that their boss was in such a good state, the 4 lackeys naturally did not dare to mention his eyes again. They said whatever they were happy about. They even mentioned that when their boss had an accident in Israel, because the people sent by the base really could not find their boss, on the day they announced that there was no need to go to Israel again, Ah Feng sat alone in front of the small silver plates of the deceased brothers in front of the base hall and cried for an entire night. When everyone found him the next morning, he was still lying on the ground with a few bottles of wine that he had gotten from Han Jin beside him. He reeked of alcohol, and when he was helped back, he kept saying, Boss, when are you coming back? Boss, come back to see me, boss, give me a dream, completely destroying his usual calm image. Li Nanhing listened expressionlessly. The base doesn't have unlimited resources, especially the elite search and rescue team. If there's an official mission, we still have to go out. We can't keep mobilizing all the firepower in the base just because Kay and I are dead or alive. It's not easy for him to persist for so long, but for the sake of the overall situation of the base, it's understandable that he stopped sending people to search and rescue. If I were him, I would make the same decision. Speaking up to here, Li Nanhing said lightly, didn't you guys return to the base because you made up for your crimes? Yes. Tam immediately raised his eyes. Boss, you know? Li Nanhing was calm and composed. No matter what, it was you guys and Feng Ling who went to find me and Kay. If you don't give you a chance to make up for your crimes, Ah Feng, the current person in charge of the base, can scram. Hee hee, I knew that boss, you look cold and kind. You're loyal to us. Chapter 1394. Lin Cheng knocked on Tam's head and said softly, that's because we brought Feng Ling with us. Our boss's steel is all around Feng Ling. Why would he talk about brotherhood with you? Who the hell are you? Don't say that. Our boss treats us brothers quite well, Lei Peng quickly said. Li Nanhing picked up a glass of water on the table and took a sip. He said calmly, Lin Cheng is right. The one you should thank is Feng Ling, the 4 lackeys. He just wanted to come over and flatter boss. How could he taste the taste of public display of affection? Did Boss Li's feelings for Feng Ling overflow? Did he love her to the point of insanity? He didn't even want their brotherhood and only wanted Feng Ling. Feng Ling had already walked over and sat down beside Li Nanhing. She asked casually, what are you thanking me for? Thank the heavens, thank the earth, and thank Feng Ling for letting boss find his desire to live. Lei Ping said vaguely as he picked at the dishes in his bowl. Feng Ling glanced at him strangely and then saw that the others were choked by the dog food. She simply ignored them and habitually scooped a bowl of medicinal soup and placed it in front of Li Nanhing. Drink more of this soup. It's good for nourishing your energy and blood. By the way, I haven't made the things in the 2 gift boxes that Xiao Su sent last time. Coincidentally, there are many people here today. Why don't you all stay tonight and I'll make those things for you to eat? The 4 lackeys still didn't know what the so-called gift boxes were. Before they could reply, Li Nanhing had just picked up the bowl and was about to drink the soup. He paused and almost spat it out. He forced himself to swallow the medicinal soup in his mouth. There's no need. I don't think they'll stay that late, Li Nanhing said coldly. Although these 4 lackeys had nothing to do in the afternoon and wanted to stay here for a while longer, when they heard Boss Li's cold hint, none of them dared to answer Fengling but said, yes, 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 don't bother. We have to go back to the base in a while. We don't have to bring our share for dinner. That's right, don't bother. We have to return to the base in a while. We don't have to bring our share for dinner. That's right, we'll be leaving soon. Seeing that they spoke in unison, Fengling did not say much. She said, I think boss doesn't like the things in that gift box. There were several times when I wanted to make it, but he refused. Why don't I bring it back for you? Wait, I'll go get it for you. What is it? Kay asked curiously. Fengling was about to stand up when her hand suddenly sank. Li Nanhing raised his hand and accurately held her hand. He then firmly pressed her back to the chair by the dining table. Sit down. You don't have to give it to them. I'll eat. Fengling glanced at him. Last time, you said that, you didn't want to eat it. There aren't many tonics that taste good. When have you seen me take the initiative to take medicine? They can't stand things that are too nutritious. Li Nanhing's voice was strangely cold and hard. He forcefully held Fengling and prevented her from showing them those things. Seeing that he insisted, Fengling did not stand up again. She looked at the 4 lackeys and felt that it was not good to let them go back empty-handed. However, since boss had already spoken, the 4 of them definitely did not dare to take anything away, so she could only give up. After the meal, the 4 lackeys who wanted to sit here for a while left very cooperatively. Before they left, they helped Fengling clean up the dining table and kitchen. They were all very clean and nimble. Then they left happily. The house finally returned to its usual silence. Fengling simply hugged the iPad and sat on the soft ground in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in the living room. She used the iPad to discuss matters with the heads of the various departments of the phone corporation in New York. Although she had the intention of handing the phone corporation to Qin Shuk, and the 2 elders of the Feng family were not particularly opposed to this, Qin Shuk did not want to take the lead. She only did all the urgent matters at hand, but she was used to handing over more matters that needed Fengling to decide to her. As a result, Fengling still had to communicate with the company when she was free. Every day, she would repeat the same thing endlessly, which was to persuade Qin Shuk to let her take over the phone corporation. After all, Qin Shuk was a relative of the Feng family. She was very kind and filial to the 2 elders of the Feng family. She had grown up in front of them and was no different from a granddaughter. After failing to persuade her again, Fengling smiled helplessly and typed another line of words on the iPad. At this moment, Qin Shuk changed the topic. Is Li Nanhing by your side? Fengling paused and turned back to look at Li Nanhing, who had walked over from the sofa and was sitting cross-legged next to her. Earlier, she was busy talking to Qin Shuk. Although she felt that he had come, she did not pay much attention. Now, she realized that he was very close to her and was sitting on the same soft carpet as her. The sunlight outside the window landed on the 2 of them. She replied, N. When are you 2 going to get married? Fengling held her chin with one hand and looked at the line of words on the iPad screen. She then turned to look at Li Nanhing beside her. When the sunlight landed on his body and face, his eyes, which were not covered with gauze, subconsciously narrowed slightly. Right now, you are very sensitive to light. The doctor said that if you can maintain the condition of being able to see light, it means that the blood clot that oppresses the optic nerve is not stubborn, Fengling said softly. Li Nanhing looked out of the window. Really? Qin Shuk asked me when I will marry you, she said again. Li Nanhing's brows moved slightly, and he turned his face to her in surprise. You can't wait? Fengling held her chin with one hand and gently tapped her face with her fingers. Her voice sounded very normal as she said, Qin Shuk is asking me. I'm just relaying her question. Then what are your plans? Li Nanhing leaned his body slightly toward her. His tall figure was by her side, and his slightly narrowed eyes were close to her head. When the sunlight landed on his eyes, she realized that this man's eyelashes were actually very long. They were warmly illuminated by the sunlight. Although he could not see, he instinctively blinked a few times. Chapter 1395. What plans can I have? Fengling tilted her head and looked at him. After all, I lost, so I can only listen to your arrangements. Hearing her say the word lost, Li Nanhing snorted. Back then, your cenotaph directly entered the Li family's ancestral hall. Even if you haven't officially married me for so many years, you have long been recognized by our Li family's ancestors. If you want to marry, can't you marry at any time? These words made it seem as though she was destined to be locked with Li Nanhing for the rest of her life. After nearly a month, the weather in Los Angeles had already entered the hot summer. Feng Ling finally convinced Qin Shuk. She could finally officially take a vacation and no longer have to care about the Feng Corporation's matters. Every day, she could cook for Li Nanhing in her apartment and the apartment that originally belonged to Li Nanhing, massage him, and water the flowers and weeds on the balcony. Every day, Feng Ling said that she wanted to cut her hair back to its previous length. Li Nanhing had no objections. He only said, it's just that he can't see it now. When he occasionally touches her, he can immediately feel her hair. If it's short, he probably won't be able to touch it in the future. Because of his words, Feng Ling gave up on the plan to cut her hair short. Every day, she simply tied her hair behind her head. Occasionally, Feng Ling would drive Li Nanhing to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor said that he had recovered well in all aspects, and his physical strength had recovered well. It was much better than expected, but the blood clot in his brain had yet to absorb itself. It was still pressing on his optic nerves, causing his vision to not recover for the time being. But at least everything was developing in the right direction. Li Nanhing was a man. All day long, Feng Ling would coax him gently and occasionally coldly order him to take medicine, eat, and sleep. He would eat and sleep all day. When he was bored, he would take a walk downstairs and the nearby park. The Li family often sent him this kind of tonic. Although Li Nanhing asked those tonics to be placed in the cabinet, Li Nanhing had already gained a lot of weight in the short 2 months he was by Feng Ling's side. When he first returned from Israel, he had lost 15 pounds. In the 2 months after he was discharged, he had gained 7 to 8 pounds. Did you say that you'll accompany me to take a shower after I gain 8 kilograms? Li Nanhing had just measured his weight and was about to take a shower when he suddenly stopped in front of the bathroom door and turned back to look at Feng Ling. Feng Ling was about to help him get a change of clothes when she heard his words. She paused and turned to see the man standing in front of the bathroom as though waiting for her figure. She murmured, "Haven't I been helping you wash every day? Let's shower together." Li Nanhing raised his eyebrows. Feng Ling, for 2 whole months, she took care of Li Nanhing's daily life dutifully every day, but the most intimate moment every day was when she helped him take a bath before he went to bed. This man would take the opportunity to kiss her face from time to time, but he didn't do anything. After all, she had been taking care of his health and didn't want to arouse his fire. She just wanted him to recover quickly and didn't have any other evil thoughts. She didn't have any evil thoughts, but it didn't mean that this man didn't have any. Several times, when he was taking a shower, he deliberately got water on her and then wanted to pull her clothes. No matter what, he wanted to kiss her in the bathroom or do something with her, but in the end, she escaped. Later, she said that as long as he continued to take care of his body, he would say it again when he gained at least 8 pounds. At that time, she said that if he gained at least 8 pounds, he would say it again. It was just a talk. It wasn't like she really wanted to take off her clothes and shower naked with him in the bathroom. Even if they really bathed together, Feng Ling wouldn't mind. However, he couldn't see right now, and his body still had to rest. The doctor said that his cardiovascular and cerebrovascular aspects were still very weak. After all, he had suffered such a serious injury back then. Right now, he couldn't suffer too much emotional fluctuations and some physical impulses. Every time Feng Ling felt that he might faint in the bathroom for more than 20 minutes, she was always very careful. However, Li Nanhing's physical fitness was really good. It always exceeded her imagination. In the past 2 months after returning to recuperate, not to mention the fact that he had never fainted once, even if he accidentally fell because he couldn't see, he could immediately stand up and continue walking without a change in expression. He didn't complain at all. So, for a person with a strong mental fortitude like him, how bad was his body in Israel for him to not acknowledge her? At that time, he might have felt that he would die at any moment. Feng Ling wanted to avoid the topic of bathing and only went to get a change of clothes for him. Hurry up and go take a shower. Don't talk so much nonsense. There are still a few bowls that haven't been washed. There's no need to use the dishwasher. I'll go wash them by hand. As she spoke, she entered her daily safe haven kitchen. The sound of the water in the kitchen was on. This place was some distance from the bathroom, so Feng Ling didn't listen carefully. However, she had just finished washing a bowl and was quickly wiping the water on it with a cloth towel when a tall shadow suddenly pressed against her from behind. She glanced at the shadow on the wall in front of her and didn't say anything until the man accurately found her and hugged her from behind. "I told you to take a shower. Don't move." Don't break the bowl later. Hug, can't I hug you? Li Nanhing, who failed to successfully bring his little wife into the bathroom, hugged her tightly from behind. The tap had been turned on, and the chopsticks and bowls that had been washed were still scattered in the sink. Feng Ling forcefully pulled out a hand to turn it off, but because Li Nanhing failed to bring her into the bathroom, he tugged at her from behind and kissed her hair, ears, and the back of her neck for a long time. Feng Ling took the opportunity to pull her hand back and quickly turned off the water. She then placed the bowl that had just been wiped into the disinfection cabinet. Her cheeks were slightly red, but her voice was solemn. Li Nanhing, the doctor said that you have to rest quietly. You'd better restrain yourself. I've already been quiet for so long. How do you want me to restrain myself? He had to prove that his injury was not there. Anyway, the doctor said that you have to rest well. Rest for a year or so. Before she could finish speaking, she felt her waist being strangled. The man was much taller than her and forcefully pressed her against the edge of the cabinet. He then turned around and pushed her against the glass door of the disinfection cabinet. You. Chapter 1396. Feng Ling hurriedly tried to push him away, but before she could do so, Li Nanhing pressed her against the door of the disinfection cabinet, harshly. The vertical disinfection cabinet, which was much taller than a person, immediately creaked. It was so clear that it could almost cover the sound of the TV in the living room. Feng Ling's ears were kissed by the man, and her face was burning red. She couldn't say a word as he pressed against her. She wanted to turn away, but he pressed her hand against the cabinet behind her. Boss, Feng Ling's voice, which had always been calm, suddenly changed at the end. She tried to break free, but he held her even more tightly. As she struggled, the stacked bowls in the cabinet fell with a crash, the sound crisp and deafening. Feng Ling took the opportunity to turn away in this narrow space, frowned, and said unhappily, Li Nanhing. She finally avoided his kiss, grabbed Li Nanhing's unruly hand, and before she could push him away, she was pressed against the glass door again. The man's breath was slightly heavy, and his lips were inseparable from hers. In the warm yellow light of the kitchen, it was as though the two of them had become one. I say, you haven't recovered yet. Don't mess around. After a long while, Feng Ling finally found a chance to speak between his lips and teeth. There was even a hint of warning and annoyance in her voice, but this warning was completely meaningless to him now, and it couldn't hide her blushing cheeks. She resisted hoarsely and said, Did you eat something wrong? Shouldn't I be asking you? Li Nanhing's breath blew against her ear. You're the one who cooked. Didn't you make everything I ate? Feng Ling was silent for an instant. What did she do tonight? The light shone from behind Li Nanhing. His eyes were unfocused, but they were still in the direction of her face. He raised his hand, stroked her red and hot lips, and suddenly asked without rhyme or reason, Did you secretly take out those 2 boxes of tonics? Feng Ling froze again, and an indescribable feeling suddenly rose in her heart. Could it be that there was a problem with those supplements? I saw that those things have been stored there for a long time, and I saw that your body is much better now, but you should still take some supplements. I don't know if you can adapt to the taste, so I stewed a small amount of venison into the ginseng soup. Didn't you ask me what kind of meat it was? It's venison, but I didn't put much. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. An inexplicable and subtle feeling that was even more ambiguous than kissing permeated the air. On the TV outside, a host was announcing something in fluent American English. All kinds of deliberate applause and laughter seemed particularly abrupt at this moment. Fortunately, it's just venison. The man's hoarse voice pressed against her ear. If it were deer penis, turtle meat, or sea cucumber, I'm afraid you would have been swallowed alive by me. Feng Ling was really stunned. Li Nanhing let go of her and turned to walk out with a helpless smile, heading straight for the bathroom. It took her a long time to react. What's wrong with venison? Seeing that the man had already entered the bathroom, she followed him out. After a while, she heard the sound of water coming from the bathroom. He was now very familiar with walking around in this house and taking a bath himself. Even if she didn't go in to help him, he could still do it. She stood outside for a while, but she didn't see any heat on the translucent bathroom glass door. After watching for a few minutes, she realized that he had gone in to take a cold shower. Feng Ling subconsciously hurried to find out what exactly these things were used to supplement the deer whip and venison. When she found out the result, her expression was no wonder. She held the iPad and looked at the answers displayed on the webpage. Her face was even hotter than when he had pressed her against the disinfection cabinet. She quickly closed the webpage and went to prepare a cup of chrysanthemum tea for him to clear his internal heat. After Li Nanhing took a shower, he came out with cold air. If it weren't for the fact that his physical condition was much better, he wouldn't have been able to withstand this kind of cold shower. However, when she saw that he was in good condition, it seemed that his body's resistance was much better and he wouldn't catch a cold easily. Then, drink this. Feng Ling quickly handed him the tea. Li Nanhing took it. Coincidentally, he had just taken a shower and was still a little cold. He touched the cup and took a sip. Then he raised his brows. What is this? Chrysanthemum tea, Feng Ling said and then added, it's for clearing heat and detoxifying. After speaking, she went into the study and said before closing the door, go ice your eyes. I'll go to the study and talk to Qin Shuk about some business. Then she decisively closed the door. Li Nanhing held the cup of chrysanthemum tea and a helpless smile immediately hung on his face. After enduring for so long, how much effect could a few mouthfuls of venison have? Wasn't it all because she had already stirred up the fire by walking around in front of him every day? However, it couldn't be said that it was useless. At least, he could calmly endure it and restrain himself. Tonight, he felt that it was a little difficult to restrain himself. There was still a lot of coldness on his body. Even Li Nanhing's breath was cold. He closed his eyes, which had been feeling a little itchy and painful these days, and drank the tea in the cup. Feng Ling hid in the study and didn't talk to Qin Shuk at all. After all, she had already handed over the company's matters. Right now, she had nothing to do. The only important thing was to take care of Li Nanhing every day. After sitting inside for a while, seeing that there was no movement outside, Feng Ling thought for a moment and got up to open the door of the study. She first opened a gap in the door of the study. Seeing that Li Nanhing was not in the living room, she opened the door completely and walked out. Did he go back to the bedroom to sleep? His eyes hadn't been iced yet, so he couldn't sleep like this. Feng Ling was silent for 2 seconds. She felt that ever since Li Nanhing returned from Israel, she had really been worried. She went to the fridge to take out the things that needed to be iced and then went to the bedroom. She pushed open the bedroom door and was startled to see that the lights inside were dim. She subconsciously turned back to see if Li Nanhing was in another room or had returned to the bedroom. However, the moment she turned her head, the lights behind her suddenly lit up, and the bedroom door opened in an instant. She was about to dodge, but the man in the bedroom was even faster. He grabbed her waist and carried her in before she could retaliate. The bed was not far from the door. She was only forced to stagger back a few steps before she was pressed heavily onto the bed. Chapter 1397. The moment Feng Ling was pressed onto the bed, she couldn't get angry. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, she pushed his shoulder hard. It's useless to take a cold shower and drink tea to clear the fire. Li Nanhing raised his brows teasingly and touched Feng Ling's face at the same time. Because she was suddenly pressed onto the bed, her hair that was tied up behind her head was scattered on the soft blanket, making her entire face even whiter and softer. He couldn't see it, but he could touch it and feel it. I didn't know those things were bought for you by the elders of the Li family. Halfway through her words, Feng Ling suddenly saw that the man's gaze deepened and immediately stopped talking. You've checked? You're reacting so strongly. How can I not check? Otherwise, I would have thought that I poisoned you. Feng Ling awkwardly raised her hand to cover her eyes. But the doctor warned me repeatedly not to let you do any strenuous exercise. Even if you think you've recovered, you still have to be careful. If I had known that those things had such an effect, I would have hidden them long ago. I wouldn't have used them to stew soup for you. Then what should I do now? I've already drunk them. As Li Nanhing spoke, he took advantage of the position of pressing down on her and deliberately pushed her hard. Feng Ling rolled her eyes at him. You clearly know the effects of those tonics, but you didn't say it. You did it on purpose, didn't you? You deliberately waited for me to make those things for you to eat on a whim. In the end, you said that I was the culprit. Even if you really raped me, I can only say that I brought it upon myself, right? Who asked you to say that? What do you mean by raped you? The smile on Li Nanhing's lips did not fade. He pecked her lips again and again. You've been going to Israel to look for me for more than 10 or 20 years, or even a lifetime. You're so deeply in love with me. Do you still need me to rape you with such a two-arrow relationship? Feng Ling, she knew that she shouldn't have confessed to him. He really remembered it after just one time. In the past, he had never received a positive response from her. She had only confessed once. She abruptly sat up. The man didn't press her down, but he still placed his leg on hers, preventing her from getting off the bed. All right, I won't mess with you anymore. Seeing that she was really about to leave, Li Nanhing quickly raised his hand and touched the air. Then he turned to touch her shoulder and pressed her back into his arms. I've been recuperating here for so long, but you haven't slept with me once. You just don't want to sleep on the same bed with me. I just want to sleep with you. You drank venison soup tonight, and you still want to sleep with me in your arms? If I agree, what's the difference between a sheep walking into a tiger's mouth? Feng Ling would not be easily fooled by him now. With that, she broke away from him and quickly got out of bed. I've put the ice compress for your eyes on the bed. You apply it yourself. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. It's getting late. Hearing her footsteps leave the bedroom door, Li Nanhing's smile did not fade. He casually touched the bed, picked up the ice pack and medicine, and squeezed them in his hand. After about half an hour, Feng Ling took a shower and dried her hair. She habitually went to Li Nanhing's bedroom every day to see if he had fallen asleep peacefully, but today, she felt that there was no need to visit him. After such a long time, he should have fallen asleep by now. Furthermore, she had clearly rejected him earlier. He should know that she was very careful and didn't want to provoke him again. However, just as Feng Ling lay down to sleep, suddenly, her bedroom door opened. There was only a dim bedside lamp in the room. The man pushed the door open and groped his way over, but it was clear that he was not as familiar with the facilities in her room as the other bedroom. His feet stepped on the soft carpet, and he moved forward until his legs touched the end of the bed. Feng Ling's expression faltered. She was about to get up when the man touched the edge of the bed and leaned over. Smelling the fragrance of the shower gel on her body, he lifted the quilt and climbed into her bed. Feng Ling. Li Nanhing, stop messing around. I'm not messing around. The man did not waste any time and lay down. Seeing that he really just wanted to sleep on the same bed as her and had no intention of messing around, Feng Ling tried her best to ignore her slightly red ears. She looked at him for a long while and finally had no choice but to let him lie down. Have you applied it to your eyes? She turned off the bedside lamp and asked. Yes. How do your eyes feel today? Do you feel any swelling pain? She asked again as she lay down. The man did not answer. Instead, he closed his eyes and his breathing gradually became even. Just like that, he fell asleep? Feng Ling's night vision was not bad. She could see the man's silhouette in the dark. She saw that he had fallen asleep on her bed. Because of the medicine and the ice compress, he was used to falling asleep the moment he touched the bed. But this was also good, lest he torment her again. Feng Ling didn't even notice that the corners of her lips curved up. She lay quietly by his side. After a while, Li Nanhing's breathing was still even, but she gently turned over by his side, gently raised her hand, and placed it on the man's body. She pressed against him and hugged him, leaning her face on his shoulder, breathing in the fragrance of the shower gel and medicine on his body before gradually falling asleep. Late at night, Li Nanhing woke up faintly. He turned over and felt the little woman beside him hugging him. He smiled in the darkness and raised his hand to pull her into his arms. The next morning. How do I look today? Do I look energetic? The second brother of the Li family sat in the car behind and yawned for the 20th time. He said weakly, "You're very energetic. You look more than 10 years younger. Your granddaughter-in-law definitely won't dislike you." Li Junyan lowered his head to check his suit. At the same time, he touched the exquisite golden sandalwood walking stick by his hand and said calmly, "After all, after so many years, this is the first time he has come to see his granddaughter-in-law. He has also taken care of Nanhing for so long. It's rare for him to visit, so he has to tidy himself up. Otherwise, the young people will dislike us old men." Second brother Li sneered. "It's already good enough that Feng Ling doesn't dislike you for chasing her out of the base back then. Do you still expect him to see the handsomeness from decades ago on your old face?" Li Junyan gave his second brother a cold glance. Back then, who knew that Nanhing would be so devoted to her? Let's forget about this matter. Don't mention it. Don't mention it. Chapter 1398. Whenever I mention this, you feel guilty. Second brother Li snorted. When they arrived at the apartment and got out of the car, third brother and fourth brother in the other car were also dressed exceptionally well. However, as Li Nanhing's grandfather, Li Junyan, after getting out of the car, deliberately raised his hand to adjust his collar. After confirming that there was no problem at all, he used his walking stick to walk toward the lush garden in front of him. Third brother whispered to fourth brother from behind, "Didn't we just come here for lunch?" Fourth brother nodded. "Indeed. Then big brother looks like he's going on a blind date, there's nothing he can do. After all, every time he sees Feng Ling, he feels guilty." Back then, the girl was lying pitifully on the ground, but she was still chased away by him. Before fourth brother could finish speaking, Li Junyan suddenly stopped in front of them. He turned back and glared at them fiercely. "The three of you were also involved." Second brother, third brother, and fourth brother, therefore, the security guards in front of the residential area were all sitting in the security room at this moment. They looked at the four well-dressed old men who didn't look like ordinary people and raised their hands to tidy up their collars and cuffs in unison. Each of them looked extremely serious and solemn as they walked in. At the same time, on the top floor of the apartment. This morning, she suddenly received a call from the Li family saying that the four elders had come to visit Li Nanheng. Feng Ling felt that her apartment was still a little small, so she went to Li Nanheng's apartment on the top floor. She was busy preparing lunch. Her busy figure really looked like a little wife who had been at home for a long time. It was as though she had completely lost the valiant and heroic bearing she usually had when she went to the battlefield with a gun. Li Nanheng stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows and felt the sunlight outside. When Feng Ling passed by behind him, he said, "Find time to open up both floors. Otherwise, you won't have to go back and forth like this. Your top floor is already a duplex. Including my floor, doesn't that add up to 3 floors? 3 floors it is. The space is larger, and the two are merged into one." Li Nanheng spoke as he looked at the sunlight outside the window. Perhaps it was because the sun was too hot today, but the light was too direct. It seemed to be much brighter than it had been 2 months ago. There was such a dazzling light that penetrated through the endless darkness. Feng Ling had been busy all morning. Li Nanheng said, "Let's invite an auntie over. You don't even have time to sit down and rest." "I have nothing to do when I'm free. This is pretty good." As Feng Ling spoke, she pulled him to the sofa to sit down. "Wasn't it like this when we were in the jungle? You were busy all day just to have a good sleep and a full meal? This is the nature of human existence." After Li Nanheng sat down, he did not let go of her. Instead, he pulled her into his arms. Feng Ling suddenly sat on his lap. Afraid that she would hurt him, she hurriedly tried to get up, but the man held her tightly around the waist. "Those old ones have to take a walk, exercise, and feed the birds in the morning. They won't come so early. Sit down and rest." Feng Ling was caught off guard and was pressed onto the sofa by the man. Her entire body sank into the sofa, and the man pressed down. However, before she could struggle, the man grabbed her wrist and held her. Feng Ling raised her eyes. Li Nanheng slowly leaned down and stopped less than 5 centimeters away from her nose. "Happy birthday." Feng Ling tilted her head back. Although she couldn't pull away from him, her expression faltered. "Whose birthday is it?" "You." "Why don't I know it's my birthday?" Li Nanheng took out her phone from her pocket and showed it to her. "I can't see it, but it doesn't mean that I don't know what day it is." Feng Ling's expression paused for a long while before she recalled that this date was her real date of birth. After she returned to the Feng family, the 2 elders of the Feng family had specially registered her birth certificate, but she had never seriously celebrated her birthday since she was young. After all, she didn't know the exact day, so she was used to not taking it to heart and didn't deliberately remember it. Looking at the date displayed on the screen, she said, "So the 4 elders of the Li family came today too. They specially came to celebrate their future granddaughter-in-law's birthday." As Li Nanheng spoke, he threw his phone on the sofa and lowered his head to kiss the tip of her nose twice. "So even if you don't prepare anything, they won't blame you. Instead, they're more willing to treat you out to eat. They don't want to see you so busy for everyone's lunch. It's precisely because the 4 elders are coming that I want to do something myself. It's not for anything else. I just hope that they can see that I'm working hard to take care of you, lest what? Lest they feel uneasy and want to bring me back to the Li family? No, I'm not that unconfident, but I still hope they can rest assured. Oh, I feel that if you can conceive a child now, they will be more at ease. I guarantee that before the child is born, they won't easily come to disturb us. Li Nanheng, don't rub against me at a time like this, okay?" With that, she hurriedly reached down to push the man away a little, but the man rubbed against her a few more times nastily. "Li Nanheng, we're under the same roof every day. You don't let me rape you, nor do you allow me to tease you. You just walk around in front of me every day, not allowing me to go in and not allowing me to rub against you?" Li Nanheng refused to let go. "It's fine if I rub against you. It won't do anything, it's broad daylight, Li Nanheng. Just because it's daytime, I hugged you to sleep for 2 consecutive nights. Do you know how much restraint I used?" Feng Ling was blushing when the doorbell suddenly rang. The 2 people on the sofa were startled. Feng Ling quickly took the opportunity to push him away. She raised her hand to tidy up her slightly messy hair. "You said that they wouldn't come so early. Since they said they would come today, they definitely won't take too long. If it weren't for you, I would have already put the dishes into the pot," Li Nanheng snorted indifferently. "If they hadn't come at such a good time, I would have already stuffed their great-grandchildren into your stomach." Feng Ling resisted the urge to take off her shoes and hit him. She rushed to open the door. The moment she opened the door, the four elders stood neatly outside the door. Their expressions were dignified and solemn. It was as though they were about to return to their country to raise the flag at the Tiananmen Square. The countdown to the double monthly vote is in 4 days. Dads, if you have a monthly vote, vote now. What will come will come. Don't be anxious. Wink. Chapter 1399. Originally, the other elders of the Li family were quite relaxed. After being warned by Li Junyan, when they saw Fengling open the door, they could not relax. Fengling was very polite. After all, she had long known about the Li family's 4 elders' bad and stubborn tempers. She nodded at them when she opened the door. Elderly, however, she wasn't sure if she should call them elderly or call them eldest brother to fourth brother. Fortunately, before she could continue, Li Junyan had already asked, "Is Nanhing still resting?" "No, he woke up very early. Recently, his body has been recovering well. He doesn't need to stay in the bedroom often," Fengling said as she moved aside and brought a few new pairs of indoor slippers over. In the living room, Li Nanhing, who had quickly tidied up the messy pillows and blankets on the sofa, was sitting upright. He picked up a cup of cold honey water on the coffee table and raised his brows in the direction of the Li elders as though nothing had happened. "You're here?" The 4 elders of the Li family had not seen Li Nanhing after he was discharged from the hospital. Seeing Li Nanhing's natural expression, they almost thought that his eyes had recovered. However, upon closer inspection, they knew that it was not good. Li Nanhing could accurately find their location by listening to the sound. Although his eyes were looking in this direction, the focus of his eyes could not completely meet them. Although there were no traces on the sofa, there was an ordinary cup of water and a plate of half-eaten fruit on the coffee table, as well as an iPad that was casually placed on it. However, the 2 buttons on the collar of Li Nanhing's home clothes were slightly pulled open by Fengling's struggle, and there was a red mark on his collarbone that was accidentally scratched by her nails. Although it was very shallow, indicating that the scratch was not heavy, it was obvious at a glance, and it had clearly happened just now. The Li family's 3rd elder, the 4 elders were so experienced. How could they not tell what had happened in this quiet living room? The atmosphere was a little strange, and they were all considering if they had come at the wrong time. Feeling the strange atmosphere, Li Nanhing, ? Nanhing, how do your eyes feel? Li Junyan spoke first. Since they were already here, they wouldn't disturb the 2 of them making dolls in broad daylight. At most, they wouldn't stay here at night and wouldn't disturb them. Fortunately, I can occasionally see some light. Li Nanhing put down the honey water in his hand and raised his hand slightly. "This is where I lived a few years ago. It's not Fengling's. Don't be so reserved. She was afraid that you would be too reserved when you went to her place, so she specially changed places. What's yours and hers? What's yours is hers." Li Junyan walked over and sat down beside Li Nanhing. The other 3 old men also sat on the sofa next to him, but 3rd elderly was always restless. After sitting for a while, he got up and looked at Li Nanhing's apartment in Los Angeles. After all, he had never had a chance to come here before. Hearing Grandfather Li's words, Fengling was speechless and could only look at Li Nanhing. Li Nanhing habitually pulled the blanket over his legs. Although he couldn't see it, he could feel it. Under the gazes of the 4 elders of the Li family and Fengling, he raised his brows. "Yes, what's mine is hers. My grandfather is her grandfather. Sooner or later, she will have to enter the Li family. Fengling, do you hear that? Be mentally prepared. You don't have to call me elderly anymore. Just call me eldest grandpa to 4th grandpa." "Yes, yes, yes. Fengling, I'm your 3rd grandpa. I'm your 4th grandpa. I'm your 2nd grandpa. Grandpa Li Junyan, cough." Fengling's expression was even stranger than the 4 elders earlier. Because of Fengling's unfamiliarity, the atmosphere in the guest room once again reached an indescribable level. Even though Fengling felt that it was unlikely, she felt that these 4 awe-inspiring elders really seemed to have come to ask for their granddaughter-in-law. In fact, her nature was still not very suitable for crowded and lively occasions. Only in front of the brothers who were particularly close to the base and in front of Li Nanhing could she occasionally release herself. Now that the 4 elders were all here, she really couldn't be casual. However, with the thought that the 4 elders might just take a wait-and-see attitude toward her, she pretended that she didn't hear what they said just now and coughed as if nothing had happened. "Would the 4 of you like to make some tea?" She remembered that there were 2 tea cakes in Li Nanhing's apartment. She wasn't used to drinking this kind of tea, but it was said that this kind of tea cake was very, very expensive. The cheapest tea cake cost hundreds of thousands or even millions. She didn't know which friend from China sent it to him, but Li Nanhing didn't seem to be interested in tea. He didn't even open the tea cake. However, it was said that these 4 elders liked tea very much. It was understandable for them to use this level of tea to show their filial piety. No need to trouble yourself, no need to trouble yourself. 4th elder quickly glanced at boss. Li Junyan suddenly reacted from Fengling's attire. Yes, there's no need to trouble yourself. The 4 old men looked at each other and then sat on the sofa. Their postures were very proper, and then they stared at Fengling's face as though they wanted to see a flower on her face. Fengling didn't know what to say. She felt that she had to find something to do. She definitely couldn't sit opposite the sofa and let the elders stare at her like Li Nanheng. She used the excuse of guiding them to make tea to slip away. 2 minutes passed. The living room was silent. The elders found it unbelievable. Previously, when Li Nanheng had just returned to Los Angeles, the 4 elders of the Li family had seen Fengling in the hospital. Although Fengling didn't linger outside Li Nanheng's ward, she had been waiting silently in the hospital. When they met by chance, although she also had long hair like this, she still looked the same as when she was in the base. She was calm and indifferent, and she only nodded politely to the 4 elders. However, when they entered the door, they saw that Fengling was wearing a set of home clothes that were the same as Li Nanheng's. Her hair was tied up, and she looked clean and busy. She really looked like a little wife at home. She had completely lost the cold sharpness she had when she was in the base. It turned out that Fengling also had such a woman's side. The little girl looked reserved and polite. She didn't speak much, but people liked her from the bottom of their hearts. Although her personality was cold, she was very meticulous. If she gave birth to a child in the future, she would definitely be a good mother. Chapter 1400. So, how could they be so heartless as to drive him out of the base back then? Thinking back to how Li Nanheng hadn't returned to the Li family for 2 years and was only willing to return to the Li family occasionally after finding Fengling, it was really understandable. Thankfully, this girl was still their grandson's. If Fengling really had no fate with Nanheng, not only would Nanheng have regrets in this life, but the few of them would also be extremely regretful. The 3rd elder of the Li family probably couldn't stand this heavy atmosphere of reminiscence. After some consideration, he said, "Has Fengling really been taking care of you alone recently?" Li Nanheng glanced at him with unfocused eyes. "Otherwise, what do you think? Fengling, this girl is not bad. I see that you're not as thin as when you first returned to America. You look good. You've grown fat and strong. I don't think it'll take long. After your eyes recover, it'll be fine." As 3rd elder spoke, he specially looked at Li Nanheng's eyes. "Then take a look. Don't you know who my wife is?" Li Nanheng was not embarrassed. Fengling, who was brewing tea next door. After that, the elders finally began to formally express their condolences. They repeatedly asked Li Nanheng if he was still feeling unwell. They even wanted to lift his sleeves and trousers to see how his wounds were healing. Looking at the various scars left behind, they kept sighing and complaining that Li Junyan shouldn't have been so heartless as to throw his grandson to the base. The Li family only had this grandson. If something really happened to him and he couldn't be saved, he would probably have no descendants in the future. Fengling brewed the tea and placed it in front of the 4 elders. After nodding politely at them, she felt that it was not right to keep dodging. Just as she was about to sit down, 2nd elder Li pulled Li Junyan away from Li Nanheng and gave Fengling a look, indicating for her to sit next to Nanheng. Fengling had no choice but to sit down. When Fengling came out to brew tea, she also took out a fruit plate. After all, she didn't know what others usually brought when they entertained their elders. She just used whatever she had at home. The fruits in the fruit plate had been washed clean by her. "Fengling, come, eat an apple." In order to ease the awkward atmosphere outside the house, 4th elder Li picked up an apple and handed it to her. Fengling quickly said, "Please eat, please eat." "Aya, don't stand on ceremony. Go ahead and eat." "No, no, no, please eat, please eat." All of a sudden, Li Nanheng reached over and took the apple from Fengling and 4th brother Li's hands. He took a bite and said, "All right, I'll eat it." "TSK, this is an apple for my granddaughter-in-law. Why did you snatch it?" 4th elder Li glared at him. However, Li Nanheng couldn't see his glare. He held the apple in one hand and said with a smile, "She doesn't want to eat it. What's the point of pushing her around? Even if you want to see your granddaughter-in-law, you should give her some time to prepare herself." Suddenly, all 4 elders came. "With her personality and temper, I can tell how nervous she is right now. You guys can talk about whatever you want. You don't have to drag her. She can be more at ease." Li Nanheng really understood Fengling's current state of mind. She really didn't know how to deal with this kind of situation, nor did she know what to say or do so that the 4 elders wouldn't think that she was insensible. Since when did we drag her? We saw that it was hard for her to take care of you alone, so we came to see you. Although we said we wanted to see you, we actually came to see our granddaughter-in-law. At this moment, second elderly also spoke. Seeing that Li Nanhing was chewing on the apple, he picked up another bunch of grapes from the fruit plate and handed it to Fengling. Come, Fengling, eat the grapes. Eating more fruits is good for your health. You can't only take care of Nanhing. You have to take good care of yourself, okay? Thank you, elderly. Fengling looked at the bunch of grapes and didn't know if she should take it. Just as she raised her hand to take it, Li Nanhing stopped the grapes and slowly put them back into the fruit plate. She doesn't eat grapes. Li Nanhing said as though he was her spokesperson. Fengling rarely eats things that are too sour. She eats pears, apples, bananas, strawberries, and blueberries at most. She doesn't eat grapes, mangoes, or durians. She doesn't eat bitter gourds or coriander. Among meat products, she hates bacon the most. She doesn't look picky, but there are many things she doesn't like to eat. Don't feed her. Hearing Li Nanhing list out Fengling's likes and dislikes as though he was counting treasures, the 4 elders were enlightened. Fengling, on the other hand, was embarrassed and her face heated up. She wished she could find a hole to hide in. Oh, I see. Second elderly immediately said with bright eyes, it's good that you don't eat it. Grapes and durians are too high in sugar. Eating too much is not good for your health. Fengling immediately smiled. Indeed, indeed. Li Junyan sat expressionlessly by the side. His 3 younger brothers would only follow behind him when he went out to establish his might. Now that he needed to coax his granddaughter-in-law, they were all useless. Who asked him to come here to discuss the sugar content of grapes with his granddaughter-in-law? Cough, cough. Li Junyan cleared his throat stiffly and forced himself into the topic. Fengling, if it's too tiring to take care of Nanhing alone, you don't have to force yourself. Tell us at any time. The Li family can send someone to help you. There's no need. Actually, he doesn't need me to take care of him most of the time. He doesn't need me to support him when he walks around at home. I just cook and clean up the room. I don't need help. I see. Then Nanhing won't feel sorry for you? There's no need to feel sorry for him. I'm willing. Willing, Li Junyan immediately glanced at Li Nanhing and saw the faint smile on Li Nanhing's lips. It was as though it was rare to hear Fengling express her feelings so seriously. Fengling said sincerely, elderly, I'm really willing to take care of him. And the 4 of you know, Nanhing and I have been together for so many years. We're already used to it. This isn't exactly taking care of him. We're just accompanying each other. The 4 elders immediately said in unison, then why don't we find a day to get married? Fengling, then, Li Junyan asked tentatively, what do your grandparents think now? The 4 elders looked at Fengling with bright eyes. Back then, when they asked the Li family to marry the second miss of the Feng family cenotaph, they didn't expect Fengling to be the person involved. Later on, because of Feng Mingzhu's matter, the Feng and Li families more or less had some conflicts. The 2 families were not close to each other and almost cut off their daily contact. Chapter 1401. Later, when the Feng family met with an accident, although the Li family had come forward to express their condolences, the 2 elders of the Feng family were clearly not in the mood to pay attention to them. Now that the 2 children were basically bound, the 6 elders should ease their relationship. She just didn't know if the 2 elders of the Feng family had any thoughts about Li Nanhing now. Although Fengling and her grandparents had acknowledged each other, in the past few years, she had been busy studying in England and in the company. In fact, she rarely accompanied the 2 elders. At most, they would have a meal together every time they returned to the Feng family to talk about the current situation. Furthermore, her grandparents knew a little about the relationship between Li Nanhing and her. They had never said anything, nor did they force them to be together, nor did they have any intention of breaking them up. They respected her choice. Besides, Fengling had always made her own decisions since she was young. If she really wanted to get married one day, she didn't need to consider whether others would agree or not. She answered truthfully, my grandparents won't interfere in these matters. The 4 elders said in unison, oh, then it seems like we should find time to go to New York to discuss the children's marriage with the 2 elders. Third elderly, Fengling will be our granddaughter-in-law in the future. At least in the future, our relationship with the Feng family will be closer than before. The 4 of us will accompany each other like this. A large group of old fellows will travel around the world. Fourth elderly, Fengling, this granddaughter-in-law, is reliable. I think the 2 elders of the Feng family don't have any objections to our Nanhing. This matter can be considered settled. Feng Ling's gaze swept across the faces of the four elders, wondering if they would really come up to persuade her to get married to Li Nanheng. Li Nanheng finally finished eating the apple slowly. It seemed that the topic of marriage was almost over. He put down the apple core and reached out to pull Feng Ling, who was sitting beside him, toward him. He put his long arm around her shoulder. "We can get engaged first. We can marry when my eyes recover. I can't not even see my wife in a wedding dress when she marries me." In an instant, the four elders of the Li family stared at Feng Ling at the same time. Their eyes were filled with various meanings, but they were basically asking for her opinion. They were asking her if she could get engaged? Feng Ling felt a headache coming on. Feng Ling was a little embarrassed by the four elders of the Li family. Before she could speak, Li Nanheng suddenly patted her shoulder. "Leave it to me. You can go prepare lunch." Feng Ling immediately got up as if she had been pardoned and fled into the kitchen. Li Nanheng knew that even if Feng Ling wanted to agree in front of everyone, she wouldn't be able to say such words. In fact, Feng Ling had always been the kind of person who didn't speak much and was very silent. She seemed to be very good at hiding her thoughts, but in fact, she was a very transparent person. He could feel her emotions and whether she was willing to be engaged or not. Seeing that Li Nanheng was so considerate as to let Feng Ling run away first, the four elders turned their eyes to him, waiting for him to give them an explanation. The moment Feng Ling stepped into the kitchen, Li Junyan's serious voice came from the sofa. "Li Nanheng." Li Nanheng curved his lips. "All right, I know what you're anxious about. She's destined to be your granddaughter-in-law. Even if she's been in the base for a few years, she's still a girl. How can she open her mouth if you force her like this? I'll answer for her. You can prepare for the engagement. The two elders of the Feng family can also contact you at any time." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Feng Ling was preparing lunch in the kitchen. At this moment, she couldn't see the anxious expressions of the four elders of the Li family, as though they couldn't wait for 4 or 5 great-grandchildren to jump out of her and Li Nanheng's house to call them grandfathers. If it weren't for the fact that Li Nanheng had promised that he would work hard to use medicine to recover as soon as possible and get married early so that she could give birth to a great-grandson for them, the four elders would have poured a few bowls of deer whip soup into Li Nanheng's mouth and locked the two of them in the same room. Just as the elders outside were discussing how they should take turns to take care of the child if they had a daughter or a son, Feng Ling poked her head out of the kitchen and carefully interjected, May I ask if you can eat spicy food? Do you like light or strong food?" Third elder Li quickly let go of fourth elder Li's collar and walked out peacefully from the battlefield of who should help take care of the child first. He smiled at the head in front of the kitchen door. "We can eat anything. Light, salty, spicy, or sour. We're not old enough to eat soft things. We can eat anything. There's no need to prepare too much, and it doesn't have to be too hard. We can eat anything. There's no need to prepare too much, and it doesn't have to be too hard. We can eat anything." Feng Ling looked a little confused. She didn't know why the four elders were arguing so much. Li Nanheng sat on the sofa, hugged the blanket, and held his forehead to hold back his laughter. Then, Li Junyan suddenly cleared his throat. "Let me tell you, Li Nanheng, the four of us are still alive. We don't know if we have long to live. If you dare to delay any longer and we can't hold our great-grandchildren, you can pack up and leave. Don't even think about inheriting the base or the Li family. If you can't give birth to any great-grandchildren, we'll deprive you of your inheritance rights. Before we die, we'll donate all our assets to charity organizations so that you can only rely on Feng Ling to support you in your next life. If she doesn't want you, you can go eat northwest wind by yourself." Feng Ling did not hear clearly in the kitchen, but she roughly heard that Li Nanheng would rely on her to support him in his next life. She was so shocked that her hands trembled and she almost cut her fingers with the kitchen knife. At this moment, third and fourth coughed a few times, indicating that Li Junyan should not be too ruthless. After all, he was their grandson. Li Junyan glared at them. "Do you have any objections?" "No objections, no objections. Look at him. He's not young anymore. He's already King 30 years old, but he's so fixated on Feng Ling. He's been staring at her for more than 10 years, but he hasn't given me a great-grandson. Have you eaten the food I asked Xiao Su to send over last time? If you haven't, I'll let Feng Ling stew it for you now. Deer penis, cattle penis, pig kidney, sheep kidney, all stew." Li Nanheng's face instantly darkened. "I have to clarify a very important point. Right now, I only have a problem with my eyes. I'm not injured where I shouldn't be. I don't care if you're injured or not. As long as my great-grandson doesn't come out, you'll have to feed me for a day." Li Nanheng held his face in pain. Who the F***ck would have thought that he, the dignified Li Nanheng, would actually be reduced to the point of having his kidney nourished. The key was that Feng Ling had been following the doctor's advice all day and not exercising strenuously. As long as the doctor didn't relent, she wouldn't even be kissed by him. Chapter 1402. In short, after my eyes recover, I'll marry her. I won't delay any longer. Li Junyan placed the crutch in his hand to the side and sat down on the sofa again. He said as though he was concluding the case, Feng Ling has been with us for so many years. She has been by our side since she was a teenager and has guarded her for more than 10 years. Let's not talk about what we did back then. In the future, treat her well and don't abandon her. If you dare to use your heart to chase after her and abandon your wife and child after marrying her, the four of us will beat you to death with our crutches. Li Nanhing rubbed his forehead and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I believe you, I believe you. Although he knew the temperament of the four elders of the Li family and that they had always treated outsiders and their own people differently, this person had already taken Feng Ling's arm before marrying her. Should he be happy or worried? Elderly, Feng Ling placed a cold dish on the dining table. I've prepared all the ingredients. They're all simple dishes that can be made in 10 minutes. There's also a soup that can be made in about 20 minutes. Do you have any other requests? There's no request. Any flavor is fine. Just be careful and don't tire yourself out. Li Nanhing gave Feng Ling, who was dumbfounded, a look for her to hide first. Feng Ling was indeed a little stunned by the elder's overly enthusiastic attitude. She nodded and turned to slip away. However, after lunch was prepared and placed on the dining table, Feng Ling couldn't hide in the kitchen all the time. When she came out, she saw the four elders standing by the dining table, staring at the dishes on the table and falling into deep thought. Feng Ling was quite confident in her cooking skills. She just treated it as them being surprised that she could actually cook. She took a glance over and walked to the sofa. She habitually helped Li Nanhing up, even though he didn't need help. He could already follow the route to the dining table. However, she could only find this opportunity to talk to him. When she helped him up from the sofa, she lowered her voice and asked, "What were you guys talking about just now?" "It's nothing. It's just that these four old men came over to force me to marry her. They want me to marry her immediately." Li Nanhing made an okay gesture at an angle that only she could see. "Don't worry, I've made it clear." Feng Ling's expression was inexplicable. "What did he say clearly?" "Make it clear that you don't want to marry me for the time being. You might need some time to consider. Tell them not to force you. Even if you want to dump me one day, they won't ask a single word. Don't feel pressured." Feng Ling nodded. Her confused mood immediately relaxed. However, in the next second, she was startled again. She instinctively asked, "Why should I dump him?" Who knows if the rare enthusiasm in the past 2 months will be short-lived and will be kicked away after a while. Li Nanhing had a strong expression on his face. "It's okay, I can bear it." Feng Ling, she knew that this man, who had become more and more slippery ever since he lost his sight, was deliberately trying to trick her, but she felt that she had never really expressed her attitude. No matter how he talked to the four elders of the Li family earlier, her original intention was that she could marry at any time. In any case, she was destined to be tied to this man for the rest of her life. Where else could she hide? "I'll marry." She said these 2 words very softly. The words that Li Nanhing had just spoken seemed to be abruptly stopped by something. The air seemed to be silent for 2 seconds. Feng Ling turned to look at him and saw that the man's face was filled with an undisguised smile. "Satisfied?" She continued to speak in a low voice. "All right, let's go eat." After a while, the 5 bachelors of the Li family and Feng Ling sat around the dining table. Looking at the steaming hot food on the table, there were Chinese dishes and various dishes commonly eaten in Los Angeles. The elders picked up the cutlery first. "Delicious, delicious. Good cooking. Feng Ling, this girl is a treasure. I really couldn't tell, Nanhing's appetite will be blessed in the future." Nowadays, there aren't many young girls who can cook and make such delicious food. Although our Li family is in the United States, we still like to eat Chinese food. Feng Ling is actually so proficient in Chinese food. It seems that she has been greatly influenced by Nanhing. This kid has been eating Chinese food at home since he was young. The elders ate happily and suddenly began to talk about Li Nanhing's childhood. From when he was naughty to when grandfather Li kept chasing him in the backyard of the Li family with a belt, to when he was so naughty that he could tear down the newly built dog shed in the villa next door, to when his little friend's ball fell into the well, to when he was so daring that he could jump into such a deep well to pick up the ball, to when he was so naughty that he could climb up a tree to help the old man catch a bird that accidentally flew away, and even when he saw the police arresting a gangster on the street, he could stretch out his leg to trip the running gangster on the spot. After helping to catch the gangster, not only did he not receive any praise from the police, but he was even brought home and given a warning for several hours. All kinds of astonishing naughty deeds were recounted by the elders one by one. In the end, they said that they were really afraid that this child would be difficult to discipline in the future, so the 4 elders unanimously decided to throw him into the base to train. However, after entering the base for so many years, his nature still hadn't changed. He didn't expect that there would be a single seedling like Fengling in this pile of men. With Li Nanhing's temper, in this world, only Fengling could control him. As for the others, he couldn't even be bothered to look at them. Fengling's eyebrows couldn't help twitching. She could only pretend that she didn't care much about Li Nanhing's past. She raised her hand to cover half of her face and resisted the trembling of her eyes and eyebrows. Li Nanhing listened to the words of the 4 elders with a cold expression. He turned his face and gave Fengling a facial expression, which meant that she didn't need to take their words seriously. Then he got up and fumbled for his phone, asking Fengling to help him dial the number of the supermarket downstairs. Fengling didn't understand and thought that there was not enough food to eat, so she dialed for him. However, after the call was connected, Li Nanhing asked the people at the supermarket downstairs to send a few bottles of wine up. He specially picked the kind that only sold for a few yuan and could be found everywhere in China, but in Los Angeles, it was extremely rare and expensive. It was worth dozens of dollars a bottle. After the wine was delivered, the few old men were still regretting that there was no wine to drink, but they were extremely satisfied and opened the wine. They drank and ate while chatting. When they were drunk, the Li family's 4th elder raised the extremely expensive erguotu in his hand and said to Li Nanhing, "Since we've decided on each other, we have to live a good life and love each other, understand?" Chapter 1403. Li Nanhing raised his glass and replied solemnly, "Understood." The 4 old men drank it. Li Nanhing made to drink as well, but Fengling held his hand and said softly, "The doctor told me not to drink." Fengling didn't know if it was an illusion, but when she finished speaking, she clearly saw the 4 old men's eyes flickering with gratification and love. It was as though the grandson they had raised with great difficulty had finally found a backer who could help them control him. Right. Nanhing's body can't take it anymore. Let's drink by ourselves. Come. Let's drink. The few old men immediately bowed to each other and hugged each other. Fengling felt that something was wrong. Why did the 4 old men and Li Nanhing seem to have a tacit understanding? Just as she was thinking, Li Nanhing forcefully picked up a piece of meat and placed it in front of her. She immediately lowered her head to watch his chopsticks accurately place in her bowl. She then raised her eyes abruptly and saw that the man's eyes were not looking at her bowl. He was still intuitive and accurate. Li Nanhing's adaptability was really too strong. Most of the time, his intuition and super-fast speed of getting used to allowed him to not be affected by his eyes. It was natural for his life to be much more convenient. Sometimes, she always felt that his eyes were not actually blind, but every time she looked at him, she couldn't find the exact focal length of his eyes, which meant that he really couldn't see. After the meal, the 4 old men were a little drunk. Fengling quickly took the initiative to send them downstairs. Thankfully, the Li family's car and driver were waiting outside. After sending the 4 of them to the car, Fengling stood by the side of the road and waved her hand, asking the driver to send them back safely. Fengling went to the supermarket downstairs to buy some things and then went upstairs with the shopping bag. She walked out of the elevator and returned to the house. When she opened the door of the apartment, she saw that Li Nanhing was cleaning up the tableware on the table that she hadn't had time to clean up after the meal. Seeing that he was standing by the table and trying his best to help her with the housework, Fengling quickly put down the bag and walked over. "Don't do it. I'll put these in the dishwasher later. Tomorrow, I'll tidy up the things in the apartment and bring them to my place. It'll be more convenient in the future." With that said, she hurriedly helped him into the bathroom to wash his hands. Because he couldn't see, his fingers and palms were more or less smeared with a lot of oil when he was tidying up the tableware. She dragged him to the tap to wash his hands, squeezed some water into his hands, and carefully helped him rub out white fragrant foam. Then she rinsed and dried his hands. Then he let go of her and turned to bring the things on the table to the dishwasher. Li Nanhing grabbed her hand and pulled her back without changing his expression. Fengling was caught off guard and bumped into the wall by the bathroom door. The man's breathing slowed, and then his chest, which was no longer as thin and had almost recovered, pressed her against the wall and tightened his grip around her waist. Fengling's footsteps were unsteady. She had just turned 1 foot away when the other was forced to turn over. She only had time to let out a gasp when Li Nanhing kissed her firmly. The man's mouth was mixed with the fragrance of a mint candy that he had casually thrown into his mouth after the meal. Recently, he couldn't smoke or drink, and his body was filled with his most essential scent. It was clear and clean, and the smell of tobacco had been replaced by the fragrance of mint and medicine. The tip of his tongue with a hint of mint almost went deep into her throat. In a trance, Feng Ling felt that what this man really wanted to explore was not here. She raised her hand, but he caught it and pressed it against the wall. His hand slid down the wall and then groped around, trying to reach into the back of her clothes. Feng Ling gritted her teeth and grabbed Li Nanhing's wrist, pushing it away a little. "What did I say? Bear with it, you can't mess around now. I can't help it." Li Nanhing pressed close to her face and breathed in the scent of her body. There seemed to be light in his eyes through the mist, and there were 2 clusters of flames in the depths of his pupils. "Just listen to the doctor's words. Don't keep it in your heart." After a pause, he said, "I've said it before. Marry me. You'll be my wife sooner or later. Don't be shy, En?" "Who's shy?" Feng Ling pushed him and turned to leave without saying a word. Before she could take 2 steps, she was brought back by a strong force from behind. Then the world spun, and Li Nanhing picked her up, threw her onto the sofa, and pressed her down without hesitation. He tucked her under his body and rubbed the tip of his nose intimately against hers. His lower body, which was obviously no longer able to hide, was pressing against her. It was a declaration of how much he had endured for the past few days. It was just 2 hugs and he was already unable to control himself. Feng Ling's ears heated up and she shouted in a low voice, "Tomorrow. Tomorrow, the doctor will come and check again. If the doctor says it's okay, I'll take off my clothes and lie on the bed, okay?" With that, she pushed him down and sat up. "Now that your strength has recovered, you're no longer the one who can't even beat a finger of mine. You're starting to want to make the decision again, aren't you? Let me tell you, as long as the doctor doesn't give in, I definitely won't wait for the doctor's permission and take the initiative." Feng Ling's expression instantly froze. Then, the night in the Washington resort appeared in her mind. At that time, she was actually halfway awake. At that time, she seemed to be very active. The scene repeatedly flashed in her mind, causing her ears to heat up. "All right, your eyes haven't been applied today. If you delay any longer, the effect of yesterday's medicine will wear off." Feng Ling quickly pushed him away. "I'll clean up first. I'll go back to my apartment to apply the medicine." Feng Ling placed everything on the dining table into the dishwasher and closed the door. She listened to the movements inside, but at the same time, she felt that she could strangely hear Li Nanhing's breathing and movements as he sat on the sofa in the living room. Even the slightest movement was exceptionally clear, as though it was scratching her sensitive nerves. Especially when Li Nanhing had just returned from England and forced himself on her in the car on the mountain, he had always respected her and never forced her. Even though he looked like a particularly ruffian and gangster-like man, making people feel that she must have been bullied too much, in fact, he had always respected her. Chapter 1404. She held her breath, but there was a fiery thing in her heart that kept jumping here and there, leaping here and there. "We've known each other for more than 10 years, and we've spent the most important moments of our lives together. We've saved each other's lives in the most difficult times, and we've left sweat on each other's bodies time and time again. We've hugged, kissed, and loved each other deeply. We've never given up on each other. If it weren't for the doctor's advice to pay attention to his health, how could she not want to go further? The person she loved was right in front of her. She was not a teenage girl who didn't understand the world." Feng Ling took out the washed dishes and tidied them up. When she went out, she saw that Li Nanhing seemed to have calmed down and seemed to be used to being rejected by her. He didn't say anything but just sat there waiting for her, like a child who didn't get candy but had no choice but to stand there and wait. The next morning, the doctor arrived. After checking all aspects, the doctor kept nodding. "Not bad. Every time you come for a rehabilitation checkup, there are new breakthroughs. Mr. Li's physical fitness is really not comparable to that of ordinary people. He's too strong. As long as his eyes are not affected, even if a few people come to fight with him, they may not be able to defeat him." "Really? Some people even say that I can't beat him." Li Nanhing sat by the table, casually buttoned his cuffs, and then fastened his collar. He said these words to Feng Ling indifferently. The doctor sat down and chatted with Li Nanhing for a while. He didn't see Feng Ling again for a long time. When he turned back, he noticed that she had come back with something and asked, "What are you doing? Moving?" "The apartment above is his. I'm moving down some things that can be used," Feng Ling replied and continued to go out. In fact, there weren't many things, but she had to sort them out. She went to the cabinet and took out all the things that occupied the space and arranged them one by one. When she finished all the examinations for Li Nanhing and told him how to recuperate and consolidate his health in the next few months, she got up and saw that Feng Ling took out 2 golden boxes from the cabinet and piled them against the wall, waiting to put them in another place. The doctor's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of the contents of the box. He walked over and looked at it carefully. At this moment, Feng Ling stood up from her squatting position. When she turned back, she met the doctor's eyes. She paused, lowered her head, and instantly saw the 2 boxes of supplements. Before she had time to be embarrassed, the doctor coughed and then turned to change the medicine for Li Nanhing's eyes as if nothing had happened. At this moment, Feng Ling also remembered that she had to be embarrassed. She quickly put away the 2 boxes. Just now, she was in a hurry to tidy up the cabinet and didn't notice that she had taken these things out. After a while, the doctor came over to pour himself a glass of water. As he poured the water, he looked at Feng Ling, who was about to come over to receive a glass of water. He did not walk away. Even when he saw Feng Ling receiving the water, he still stood by the side with an expression as though nothing had happened. His voice was so low that only she could hear it. Actually, based on Mr. Li's physical condition, it's no longer a big deal. I just keep reminding you to be careful. Feng Ling turned to look at him. Seeing that she didn't seem to understand what he meant, the doctor coughed in a low voice. I mean, as long as you pay attention to one thing and don't let Mr. Li be too tired, it's okay for the 2 of you to do something, but you have to pay attention to moderation. You have to pay attention to moderation. After hearing this, Feng Ling withdrew her gaze and silently closed the small door of the water dispenser as though she hadn't heard anything. Then she calmly took a sip of water and turned to leave without saying a word. In the afternoon, Li Nanhing didn't know what was wrong with Feng Ling. Although she usually didn't speak much, she was especially quiet this afternoon. For example, he asked, "Where did I put the slippers just now? Did you put them away?" Feng Ling didn't answer. She took the slippers over, placed them by his feet, and then ran away as though the soles of her feet were smeared with oil. For example, he said, "My eyes are a little itchy today. Can you take off the medicine in advance? I feel the most comfortable when I don't apply medicine." Feng Ling didn't say anything. She adjusted the small hairdryer to the most soothing and cool mode and gently blew around his eyes for a while. When he didn't feel so itchy anymore, she slipped away again. In the evening, when Li Nanhing was eating, he felt that the taste was a little strange. "Is there something on your mind today?" Usually, Feng Ling's cooking was moderate and rarely tasted wrong. Although today's food was not bad and the taste was not much different, it was indeed a little saltier than usual, which meant that she was thinking about something when she added the salt. Feng Ling glanced at him silently. Was this man's sensitivity so high? When she was preparing dinner, the iPad screen next to her didn't display a menu today, but some related topics about how to make a man feel more comfortable at that time and various similar topics. She looked them up, and at this moment, her mind was filled with the actions she had prepared hundreds of times in her mind to do to him. She just didn't know how to do the first step. The sky turned dark. Li Nanhing went to take a shower and change his clothes. In the past month, his hair had grown a lot, and his ink-black hair was still dripping with water. He casually shook his hair. Because he had taken off the medicine in front of his eyes before taking a shower, he felt that his eyes were relaxed and comfortable. He simply sat on the sofa with his eyes closed and casually pulled the blanket over, planning to sit on the sofa and take a nap. After all, it was not time to sleep yet, and he still needed to apply ice before going to bed at night. Just as Li Nanhing was about to fall asleep, he suddenly heard footsteps approaching. He knew it was Feng Ling who had just come out of the shower. She was not wearing shoes and was barefoot. He frowned and woke up. "I was wondering why you weren't wearing." Before he could finish speaking, he was suddenly shocked by Feng Ling's movement. At this moment, his nose smelled the fragrance of shower gel and shampoo. Then, a woman wearing only a loose t-shirt on her upper body and nothing on her lower body, not even wearing underwear, spread her slender legs and directly sat on his lap. Ching's baby has 4 days off. Ching accompanied the child to play outside for 4 days. It's true that holidays are more tiring than working days. I'm so tired that I'm about to collapse. After tomorrow night's update, see you on Weibo. By the way, I'll shout myself hoarse and beg for monthly votes here. It's rare to get double monthly votes. Chapter 1405. Only a fool would let go of the person in his arms who had suddenly taken the initiative to deliver herself to him. Even though Li Nanhing's mind was a little dazed, he subconsciously quickly put his legs down to prevent her from falling down again. Feeling that the man's reaction was to let her sit more steadily, Feng Ling looked at the man's face and was silent for a while. She was too embarrassed to say the words that were about to come out of her mouth. However, just as Li Nanhing was about to ask her what she was doing, Feng Ling had already held his hand that he had just raised to hold her. Sitting on his lap, she lowered her head and gently kissed his warm and dry palm. This kiss went from the palm to the tip of his finger, and then to the tip of his finger. Then Li Nanhing felt that she seemed to pause for a moment. After hesitating for a second, she still gently bit the tip of his finger. Feng Ling's teeth were white and neat, but in fact, there were two unruly little canine teeth hidden. At this moment, she was gently biting him with her little canine teeth and even accidentally rubbed her tongue. It was soft. The feeling was transmitted from his fingers to the sensitive nerve endings. Li Nanhing's body trembled reflexively and he was about to pull his hand away, but she grabbed his hand and did not let go. She bit his fingertips harder and when she let go, the teeth marks on his fingertips were clearly visible. Feng, you. Before Li Nanhing could speak, his lips were suddenly sealed by her soft lips. On his thigh, the woman was inextricably pressed against him. Although the two of them were sitting on the sofa, their lower bodies were intertwined in an intimate and dangerous position. Separated by a thin material, Li Nanhing could not hide this situation in less than 2 seconds. Feng Ling seemed to be not used to this position. She tried her best to retract her legs, which made him feel even more stimulated. Li Nanhing, yesterday was my birthday. You didn't give me a present. Feng Ling pressed against him tightly and kissed him until he was stunned. After he could not speak, she leaned close to his ear and whispered. Li Nanhing's brows trembled. Yesterday, those 4 old men came to make a scene. Later, I wanted to take them out for a walk, but every time after eating, I didn't have the appetite to eat cakes and other desserts. At night, when I wanted to go out, they said that it was too windy and I couldn't go out, so it's okay. If you didn't remind me, I wouldn't have remembered it was yesterday. One more day won't make a difference. Then what do you want? Under Feng Ling's gaze, even though Li Nanhing couldn't see how red her face was at this moment and how much tension and uneasiness were hidden under the calm surface in her eyes, he could guess that this was the first time she had taken the initiative to do such a thing. Although she looked like a wolf and a tiger, she must be panicking inside, so he didn't deliberately provoke her. He only asked softly and calmly, in case he said something wrong and scared away this little Feng Ling who had jumped into the dragon's pool and tiger's den. After all, he couldn't see right now. If she really ran away, he might not be able to catch her. Feng Ling felt inexplicably calmer under Li Nanhing's calm gaze. Then give me a gift today. Li Nanhing was still extremely calm. And, what gift? Feng Ling did not speak at first but lowered her head to look at his Adam's apple. She remembered that she had bitten here in the warm pool in the resort. Later, for some reason, she kept wanting to bite him. That time, when she bit his Adam's apple, this man seemed to have groaned a few times. It was clearly a sensitive place for him. She leaned down and suddenly bit his neck, then gently bit his Adam's apple. Sure enough, the man who was pressed against the sofa by her stiffened all over. In less than a second, his muscles tightened, and the hand that had just held her waist tightened. Feng Ling turned her head slightly and pressed against his neck, which was gradually heating up. I don't know how to make it comfortable, but before she could finish speaking, Li Nanhing pressed her firmly into his arms. Feng Ling's lips hit his neck, and then the man suddenly carried her up. He bent down to lift her up and carried her horizontally. He took a few steps toward the bedroom and did not stop for a moment. He entered the bedroom and kicked the door shut. Then he placed Feng Ling on the bed, pushed her into the soft blanket, and firmly covered her. With Li Nanhing's figure and height, he had long recovered to a certain extent. She had always treated him as a weak patient who could not even kill a chicken to take care of him for so long. It was probably because she had been taking care of him for so long that she subconsciously felt that Li Nanhing was weaker than her. However, on the contrary, this man had never been weaker than her. For example, right now, she could completely feel the strength in the man's arms and the man's firm and hard chest imprisoning her. She knew that she had barged into his territory tonight. Right now, even if she wanted to stop, it was impossible. It was also because she had already made preparations in advance. The man locked her on the bed, and his hot breath brushed against her neck. She was forced to stare at the man's black eyes in this face-to-face position. In the bedroom without the lights on, the man's eyes were very bright. They were so bright that it was as though he could see the fine sweat on her nose due to her nervousness. It was as though he could see the softness in her eyes. Why do you suddenly want to do it again? Didn't you desperately escape from me yesterday and warn me again and again to restrain yourself? Feng Ling's lips moved and then she pursed them. Even though he couldn't see her, she still subconsciously tilted her head away. The doctor said that it's okay, but I can't let you be too tired, and then I still have to restrain myself. I can't, Can't be too long, can't be too long? Li Nanhing seemed to be amused. All right, under normal circumstances, after holding it in for so long, I might not be able to do it until dawn. Seeing that the doctor has relented, let's end it before dawn? Feng Ling. Li Nanhing, pay attention to your body. What's wrong with my body? As the man spoke, he pushed against her as nastily as before. I haven't touched you for a long time. I've been weak in front of you for a few months, and you really think I'm a little gigolo? If I don't make you cry tonight, I'm afraid the name Li Nanhing will be written backwards. Feng Ling's face heated up. In the end, she forced herself to say something, but when the words reached her mouth, the man pushed against her again and she couldn't say anything. Speak. Li Nanhing slowly bent down and leaned closer. When he spoke, his lips were almost pressed against hers. Who gave you the guts to come out and seduce me without wearing anything down there? Chapter 1406. Speak. Li Nanhing slowly leaned down and leaned closer. When he spoke, his lips were almost pressed against hers. Who gave you the guts to come out and tease me without wearing anything? Feng Ling originally wanted to answer that she had checked the various suggestions of people online and said that men liked this kind of thing. That was why she had saved the lower half of her body after showering. But before he could open his mouth, his voice was suddenly sealed. The man's kiss was different from every previous kiss. In the terrifying and suffocating entanglement, accompanied by the man's long-suppressed desire, all of her senses were infused with such a fiery kiss. Her body could not help but gradually heat up. Don't move. Let me do it. She remembered that she had to take the initiative. She raised her hand and was about to unbutton his clothes when the man spoke urgently and vaguely. At the same time, he held her hand and quickly unbuttoned his home clothes one by one. Then he pulled her hand up and pressed it against his chest. Due to the heavy blow in Israel, his originally flat muscles and skin had many uneven marks. Because it had only healed a few months ago, it was not the best time to have a scar removal operation. These scars would need at least 2 to 3 years to be removed. Touching the scars, Feng Ling's heart ached. She took the initiative to circle behind him and hugged his back tightly. Sensing her actions, the man panted and asked with a smile, "Are these scars very sexy? Touching them here and there?" It was not just sexy. When she thought about how this man had managed to survive in such a dangerous situation, and how he was able to stand in front of her and press her down on the bed with his strong muscles, she felt extremely sexy. She did not speak. She raised her head and kissed his chin, then kissed his lips. All the active responses caused the man's restraint to collapse to the limit. He abruptly pressed her under his body and pressed his forehead against hers. He said hoarsely, "How dare you tease me like this? When you cry, pay attention to your throat. Don't shout until it's hoarse. Do you love me? Answer?" She couldn't recover from the surging tide of passion. She could only rely on her instincts to answer a vague word hoarsely. "Love." Li Nanhing's first reaction was to not believe his ears. A few seconds later, joy came like a storm. He suddenly carried her up and went straight to the bathroom. Feng Ling was carried on his shoulder. Earlier, her soul was almost scattered. She barely took a breath and said, "Slow down, Li Nanhing, slow down. There's a sofa in front? I can't see it. Don't bump into it." However, the man was already familiar with all the distances and positions in this house. He accurately circled around the sofa and entered the bathroom door. When she was pressed against the bathroom wall by the man, Feng Ling could only hear the man repeating under the warm shower, "I love you, Feng Ling, I love you." Time passed bit by bit. Before Feng Ling's consciousness dissipated, the only thing she could think of was that she was glad that she didn't give him the nutritious food the Li family sent. Otherwise, her life would have been lost here. How was he injured? It was clearly just a few scars on his body. Anything else? He was completely unaffected. In the early morning, the sun slowly rose from the east and cast a bright light through the gaps in the curtains. On the large bed in the bedroom, the clothes and bedding were messily folded. Finally, the man's heavy breathing and the woman's weak cat-like moans gradually calmed down. Li Nanhing was still on top of her. He took a shower midway and then continued several times. He was reluctant to lie down, as if being close to her like this was enough for him to fall asleep comfortably. Feng Ling half opened her eyes tiredly and frowned. "What's wrong?" Li Nanhing asked softly. Feng Ling did not answer. Using the light in the room, she sized up the man on top of her bit by bit. When Li Nanhing's eyes were not so cold and sharp, he looked very calm and handsome. When his facial features were soft, he was so good-looking that it made people want to lean against him. However, he often had a cold, "don't provoke me" attitude and expression, so his brows were always cold and sharp, making people not dare to approach him. especially when he was very good at looking at Li Nanhing's brows and straight nose. She looked carefully and seriously. After a long time, she raised her hand and touched Li Nanhing's face. I thought it was about time for dawn to come and I should sleep for a while. The man lowered his head and bit her lips, saying harshly, but it's clear that you don't want to sleep. Li Nanhing was like a lion that had been hungry for a long time and finally had meat again. This night, from the initial intensity, gradually changed from surging desire to true love. You can't take it anymore? Didn't you say that I'm so weak that I can't even beat you? Am I so delicate? Feng Ling subconsciously wanted to grab the bed sheets as though she wanted to break free, but the moment she moved, the man pressed her back down with his hands on her waist and kissed her heavily. The noon sun shone through the gap in the curtains and onto the messy large bed in the bedroom. Feng Ling's eyelashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. After a few seconds of confusion, her eyes finally focused. She felt a heavy object on her body. She lowered her head and saw that it was indeed that familiar arm. She wanted to turn over, but the sleeping man pulled her into his arms again. Li Nanhing's upper body was naked outside the quilt. He closed his eyes and held her head with one hand and her waist with the other. Sleep for a while more. Feng Ling was caught off guard and bumped into the man's chest. Her entire face was facing him. She quickly struggled and said, "It's almost noon. You haven't eaten yet. You haven't applied medicine to your eyes. You forgot to ice them last night." She had just struggled to get off the bed, but before her feet touched the ground, the man suddenly hugged her from behind and she fell back onto the large bed. Then Li Nanhing pulled her into his arms and hugged her tightly again. "It's all right. Sleep first. These few hours won't matter. But, be good." The man stroked her head comfortingly. Clearly, although he had a good night, he was indeed sleepy. After all, he had been recuperating for so long and was used to sleeping early and waking up early. He suddenly didn't sleep for the whole night. Right now, he really needed to hug her to make up for his sleep. "Aren't you going to eat?" Chapter 1407. I'm not hungry. Let's sleep first. We'll talk when we wake up. He insisted on holding her in his arms. Feng Ling's head was tilted back by this man, and her entire body was firmly in his arms. She did not have much strength. After being squeezed for an entire night, it would be strange if she had any strength. Seeing that he insisted, she simply let herself be in his arms and closed her eyes again. But why was this man pressing against her as if he was threatening her? She carefully avoided him, but he rubbed against her again, insisting on sticking to her. In the end, she was afraid that something would happen again, so she simply stopped moving and chose to sleep. Seeing that she was not moving, the man kissed the white skin on the back of her neck as if he was a little regretful. He wanted to say that he still wanted to continue, but seeing that her body was so weak, he couldn't bear to say that. There was still a long way to go. Since she had already agreed to marry him, there was no hurry. They could continue at night. Li Nanhing hugged her tighter in his arms, brushed aside her long hair by her ear, kissed her white ear, and said softly, "Sweet dreams." Feng Ling rubbed her face against his arm, but there was no reaction. Clearly, she was about to fall asleep. Li Nanhing called a nearby hotel to send food over. After receiving the food, he went to the dining table and placed it on the table one by one. Then he tested the temperature with his hand, scooped some pork rib soup, and brought it into the bedroom. The light in the room was not turned on. Right now, it did not matter to him whether the light was on or not. He walked back to the bed and could still smell some hormones in the bedroom, which stimulated Li Nanhing's sensitive nerve endings after sleeping with her in his arms for a few hours. Hearing the sound, Feng Ling seemed to have regained some consciousness. She curled up under the quilt and half closed her eyes, looking unwilling to wake up. It was not until Li Nanhing's hand took her out of the quilt and kept kissing her, from her hair to the corner of her eyes, and patted her face to tell her to get up and eat something that she suddenly woke up. He couldn't see. How could he get food for her? However, when she turned her eyes, she saw that it was a takeaway box from a nearby five-star hotel. She paused, opened her mouth, and said in a hoarse voice, "You brought it in just like that? What if it's scalded?" "What's hot?" "No matter how hot it is, you have to let him eat something first. That's what you call physical exhaustion." Li Nanhing put down the bowl and touched her cheek. "Eat something before you sleep, or your stomach will be uncomfortable." Feng Ling really didn't have much strength, but seeing that he had specially asked for food from the hotel, he was afraid that she would be hungry. No matter how tired she was, she couldn't bear to push him away. She took the bowl and spoon, ate a few mouthfuls, and drank some soup. Then she put the bowl aside. "Leave it here. Don't walk around." She was so sleepy that she even forgot to help him apply the medicine. She lay down and was about to sleep. The man chuckled and bent down to kiss her lips, which still had the taste of pork rib soup. All right, I won't wander around. I'll accompany you in bed. Feng Ling thought he meant to sleep with her, so she answered vaguely and went back to sleep. Who knew that the man would directly take off his clothes and lie back under the blanket? Behind him, easily, Feng Ling really couldn't take it anymore. Amidst the ups and downs of the quilt, she spoke hoarsely. Boss, the man's low and hoarse voice was close to her ear. Feng Ling closed her eyes and wanted to say something, but because of the man's hoarse voice in her ear, she couldn't say anything. Be good. I promise this will be the last time today. Before her consciousness completely dissipated, this was another promise from Li Nanhing, the liar. When Feng Ling opened her eyes again, it was already dusk outside. She flipped over from under the blanket and sat up. Because she hadn't done it for a long time, the pain there caused her to suck in a breath of cold air when she stood up. After a long while, she finally slowed down and walked out. Her body had actually been washed. At the very least, Li Nanhing was very careful about this. He wouldn't let her sleep uncomfortably with her body sticky all over. Li Nanhing wasn't in the bedroom. She opened the door and walked out, only to see the man sitting in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on his head, making his entire body glow. Hearing the sound of the bedroom door, the man turned his head slightly. Hearing the sound, Feng Ling looked at him for a moment and walked over. She was about to reach out to help him back to the sofa, but when she raised her hand, her expression froze. On her ring finger, there was a platinum ring. When she got up earlier, she didn't notice it. Now that she saw this ring, she was stunned for a few seconds and asked, "This ring? When the old man came over yesterday, he secretly stuffed it into my hand when he was in the kitchen." Speaking up to here, Li Nanhing sighed with a smile. He also didn't let me tell the other 3 old men. Feng Ling looked at the ring on her ring finger and felt that this ring was very old. It should be a very expensive and popular platinum ring from many years or even decades ago. Although it was a little old, she must have hired a craftsman to polish the surface of the ring until it was as smooth as new. It was clean, bright, and very beautiful. So this ring is the Li family's heirloom? Feng Ling asked teasingly. No, it said that my grandfather and grandmother wore it when they got married. After the old lady passed away, no one noticed when the old man took off her ring and kept it by his side for so many years, Li Nanhing said mildly. After the old lady left, this ring was equivalent to the old man's life. Now that he asked me to hand this ring to you, I don't think he has any intention of completely binding me to the Li family. He is just apologizing to you and expressing the Li family's sincerity. Apologize for what? After Feng Ling finished speaking, she suddenly recalled how she was chased out of the base. She paused. After thinking for a moment, she said, I understand. With that, she leaned over and endured the pain in her lower body. She looked at the man sitting on the carpet by the window and reached out to show 2 in front of him. Li Nanhing, how many is this? The man searched for her voice and fixed his eyes in her direction. What? I said, how many is this? My hand, in front of you. Feng Ling turned her fingers into 3. Li Nanhing, you still can't see it? Nonsense. Then how did you carry me to take a shower, call the hotel for takeout, and even put the ring on my finger? Today's roller coaster ride, I'm sure everyone knows where to look, right? I'm frantically hinting that if it's not in the main account, everyone can directly go to the sub-account. In any case, there will definitely be one. Ching is really working hard to satisfy everyone, and then I'll ask for monthly votes. Chapter 1408. The air fell into a moment of silence. Feng Ling looked at him. Li Nanhing, if you dare to lie to me after your eyes have recovered, you know my temper. It's not healed, really. Li Nanhing raised his face, his expression calm and serious. She paused, not believing him. She stared at him for a long while, then leaned over to his eyes. She stared straight into his eyes and raised her hand to touch his eyes. However, the man raised his hand and pulled her into his arms. The moment she stumbled into his arms, she immediately cried out, You still say you can't see? I really can't see. The man didn't let go after hugging her. He sat on the carpet and hugged her into a ball. He lowered his head and kissed her on the cheek. Occasionally, I can see some blurry images with the help of the light. It's so blurry that I can't see it clearly. For example, right now, there's a lot of light in the window. I can see a figure standing in the dark, but when you raise your hand, I can't see it clearly. Then how did you get the hotel takeout? The number you recently dialed is K. I touched my phone, dialed the nearest number, and asked K to help me contact a nearby hotel. So that's how it is. The man lowered his head and kissed her forehead comfortingly. You want me to recover my eyesight as soon as possible and marry me? Why are you in such a hurry to marry me? Feng Ling did not speak, but Li Nanheng rarely gave others pressure. He could act as usual as though there was nothing wrong with his eyes, so in the past few months, she often forgot that he could not see anything. It wasn't easy for her to catch some clues that her eyes could see, but in the end, it was not. That's right. He had been groping around this house for several months. It was not difficult to carry her to the bathroom, and he could even find her ring finger. Since you can see some blurry images, it means that your eyes have improved. Find time to go to the hospital again. The doctors who occasionally come for a health check can't bring equipment. Go to the hospital for another check. All right? Li Nanheng heard the restraint in her tone and raised his hand to touch her head. He was the one who should be comforted, but now he had to comfort her instead. Coincidentally, Feng Ling's legs were still sore, so she simply let herself lean in his arms and did not get up. The evening sun was also warm. She narrowed her eyes and leaned in his arms for a while before feeling sleepy again. In the end, he accidentally fell asleep again. When she woke up again, Feng Ling was in the bedroom. Hearing Li Nanheng's voice in the living room, she got up and walked out to see that he was answering the phone. Yes, Dr. Yorko contacted me a month ago. Some time ago, he was accompanying a seriously ill elder in the sanatorium and has been on leave. Recently, he returned to New York and had a few important eye tissue surgeries. He just took the time to arrange a week of free time. I'll go over and give it a try. You don't have to come over. You're only here to visit at a time like this. My wife still has to prepare food for you. It's enough for her to take care of me. Feng Ling listened for a while and walked over. Coincidentally, Li Nanheng had hung up the phone. Awake? He asked, turning to her at the sound of her footsteps. Who called? Qin Sighting. Li Nanheng handed her a cup of milk that he had just warmed. When Feng Ling gratefully received it, he said, Qin Sighting knows an internationally renowned ophthalmologist, but it's very difficult to make an appointment with this doctor. Because an elder in his family passed away not long ago, he hasn't been out for a consultation. He only recently resumed work. Mo Jingshan recently contacted the president of their hospital and specially gave me Dr. Yorko's time for the next week. Is this doctor very good at treating eyes? It shouldn't be bad. A month ago, I accepted the suggestion of a doctor in Los Angeles and contacted this famous Dr. Yorko. However, at that time, something had just happened to his family and he really didn't have time to come, so I didn't force him. Li Nanheng heard the soft sound of her drinking milk and smiled. Recently, Qin Sighting and Mo Jingshan have used their connections to make a decision. We'll leave for New York tomorrow. I'll go meet Dr. Yorko, and you can go back to New York to visit the Feng family. Yesterday, Jean Wan said on the phone that she was coming. I didn't want her to go abroad with the child. She's pregnant recently, so I didn't let her come. What you said today, if she finds out, she might really think that I don't want to entertain them personally. Feng Ling drank most of the milk and glanced at him. I think you don't want to see Mr. Mo and Mrs. Mo bring their 2 children to show off their love in front of you. Li Nanheng sneered but did not explain. Instead, he turned his head and kissed her ear. When she was about to dodge to the side, he held her waist and pressed her into the sofa. Then hurry up and give birth to 1 or 2 for me. If Mo Jingshan dares to show off in front of me with his wife and children, I'll throw our children's diapers on his face. Let's see if he still dares to show off. Feng Ling, she imagined the scene and then thought of Mr. Mo's expressionless face. A chill ran down her spine and she quickly pushed him away. It's not easy for Mr. Mo and Jinwan to have such a peaceful little happiness. Is there a need for you to be so sour? Besides, Dr. Qin isn't married and has no children. It's not like you're the last one. What's the rush? Li Nanheng sneered on the spot. Then I'm afraid you don't know that when Cherniange ruthlessly slept with him and left him for America, she already had the Qin family seed in her stomach. When she returned to High City, she was already the mother of a 3-year-old girl. Do you know how many years she hid it from Qin Sighting? Qin Sighting was the first to become a father. Feng Ling looked incredulous. Why haven't I heard of it? With Cherniange's personality, even if she lost her teeth, she would swallow her own blood. She even hid it from Qin Sighting for so long. How would others know? Even when Liqing can make a son out of one Linhan. Do you think I'm sour? Li Nanheng said as he pinched her waist and pressed her into his arms. I'm already 30 years old, it's 31. Feng Ling still had the time to correct him. Li Nanheng's face darkened. So I've been by your side for so many years. I've had you in my heart since your chest was not fully developed. I've been treating you for more than 10 years, but in the end, I'm actually the last one to give birth to a child. Chapter 1409. How could such a thing be counted as being at the bottom? Feng Ling was dumbfounded. The air fell silent again. I've had a dream since I was young. I want to find a woman I like, give birth to a son or daughter, and throw them to the four elders. I want them to feel the familial love of 2 generations apart. Let's see if they still dare to slap their great-grandchildren with a belt. Li Nanhing covered his eyes and shook his head after a while. He said solemnly, I wonder if they can live to that day. Feng Ling. With that, Li Nanhing let go of her and stood up to walk to the floor-to-ceiling window. In the darkness, he faced out of the window. His back view was surrounded by a trace of heavy helplessness, tolerance, and forbearance, as though the man covered in blood in the Israeli river was slowly looking up at the sky with heavy footsteps. Then he symbolically shook his head to show that his heart was really very vicissitude. Feng Ling held her forehead and was defeated. Give birth, didn't I not use any contraceptive measures last night? You've already put it in. I don't plan on taking any medicine. I'll just leave it to fate. If I'm really pregnant, I'll give birth. You agreed just like that? Qin Shuk looked in disbelief at Feng Ling, who had always been very calm when it came to relationships. She actually agreed to have a child. Feng Ling and Li Nanhing had already rushed from Los Angeles to New York for 2 days. Li Nanhing was still waiting for the surgery at Dr. York's place. This doctor was indeed very reliable. Yesterday, he only took a morning to confirm that he could be cured. He only needed to undergo a simple minor surgery. After the surgery, he could be discharged in about 4 to 3 days. This was equivalent to the week that Mr. Mo and Dr. Qin had fought for him. Li Nanhing could finish the eye surgery and return to Los Angeles after leaving the hospital. However, Li Nanhing did not ask her to stay in the hospital. He only told her to return to the Feng family or Qin Shuk to wait for his news. Coincidentally, Qin Shuk knew that she had returned to New York, so she rushed to the hospital and brought Feng Ling back to the company. It had been a long time since she returned to the company. Right now, this place was no longer completely under her management. When Feng Ling entered, she even wore a mask to prevent the employees from recognizing her. She successfully entered Qin Shuk's office. After all, he's about to undergo eye surgery. He needs to be in a good mood during the recovery period. Besides, this kind of thing is up to fate. If I still take contraceptive pills at this time, I'm afraid he'll jump off the operating table and strangle me. Feng Ling sat on the sofa in the office and casually flipped through the company documents. After a while, she felt a headache. How did she survive in this pile of documents in the past few years? It was really not suitable for her. She would get a headache if she looked at it for a while, and her eyes would probably hurt if she looked at it for a while longer. Now that you're willing to stay by his side, he can't wait to dote on you like you're his sweetheart. How would he dare to pinch you? Qin Shuk chuckled. However, I suggest that you consider having a child after his eyes recover. Otherwise, he won't even be able to help the child change diapers. I'm not pregnant now. I didn't think too much about it. Besides, I'll be pregnant for 10 months. If I'm really pregnant one day, maybe if he's happy, the blood clot that oppresses the optic nerve will be stimulated away. As Feng Ling spoke, she put down the documents in her hands. In fact, she was just joking casually. She then said seriously, now I'm at the age to get married and start a family. In the past, I could squander a few more years because I was young. Now that I think about it, I'm really wasting my time. Li Nanhing is like a lone wolf. In this world, I'm afraid only you won't be completely swallowed by him. Ordinary people really can't suppress someone like him. Really? Feng Ling curved her lips and recalled that Li Nanhing had jokingly called her little wolf girl a few times. Wolves were loyal by nature, just like her loyalty to 11 Base and Li Nanhing. If she was destined to be with wolves since she was young, she really didn't mind having a little wolf cub with Li Nanhing. At this moment, Feng Ling's phone rang. The call was from the Feng family. She glanced at it and picked it up. Matriarch Feng's voice came from the other end of the phone. Good granddaughter, you're back in New York, aren't you? Coincidentally, Grandma has something to tell you. Should we look for you, or will you come home? I'm with Shuk. I can go home directly. Feng Ling heard Matriarch Feng's voice. Although they had only known each other for a few years, she was still very close to this grandmother. Her voice became much gentler. Is it something important? It's nothing much. It's mainly because the Wen family heard about little Momo and sent someone over to ask for the child. Although they're from the Wen family, didn't you say that Wen Liqing specially handed the child to you and didn't send him back to the Wen family? This means that there's something wrong, so we didn't dare to hand the child over to them. Recently, the Wen family has been sending people over frequently. I'm worried. Coincidentally, you're back. Feng Ling was silent for a moment. I understand. I'll go back later. What's wrong? Seeing that Feng Ling had put down the phone and was about to leave, Qin Shuk sat behind a pile of documents on the desk and looked up at her. I'll go take a look at little Momo's problem. Help me keep an eye on the hospital. All right, if there's any news from Li Nanhing, he'll definitely contact you immediately. Qin Shuk gave her a Don T bully me a single expression. The driver is downstairs. Don't drive yourself. Let the driver send you back. Feng Ling nodded and left. When she returned to the Feng family, little Momo was sitting in the small sand pile in the yard, playing with a small toy car. When he heard the sound of a car outside, he did not even look outside. He turned his head and shouted, "Great-grandma! There's a car!" There was a servant guarding by the side. When she saw Feng Ling return, she quickly nodded at her. Feng Ling smiled and looked at little Momo. As expected, less than 2 minutes after he shouted, Matriarch Feng rushed out as though she was afraid that the child would be taken away by some random person. When she saw it was Feng Ling, her expression relaxed. "You're back so quickly?" Feng Ling nodded and walked to little Momo. She leaned in front of the child and bent down to look at him. "Little Momo, it's been a few months. Do you still remember Auntie?" Little Momo finally lifted his attention from the toy car in his hand. The moment he saw Feng Ling, he was stunned for a moment before he grinned and jumped into her arms. "Sister, Io, my little ancestor, your hands are covered in sand. You haven't washed your hands." Seeing that Feng Ling's clothes were instantly dirted, the servant slapped her thigh and cried out. She rushed forward to pull the child away. "It's all right. There are clothes at home. I'll change later." Feng Ling picked the little thing up and lowered her head to kiss his face. "You're tuning into the Heartfelt Tales YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.